2021 San Diego County Board of Supervisors regular meeting. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Before I call the roll, I would like to note for the record that all supervisors are participating via teleconference. As such, all votes will be handled by a roll call vote. Additionally, before we begin, any members of the public that wish to provide oral testimony during today's meeting, please review the instructions posted on the Clerk of the Board's webpage. I will remind members of the public that have requested to speak to wait to dial into the meeting until the item is called. With that, I will now call the roll. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye. Here.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Here.
Supervisor Desmond?
Here.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas here.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher here. If everyone will please stand, we will begin with the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance this morning. The invocation will be delivered by Pastor Terrell Fletcher from City of Hope International Church. Bishop Fletcher, we welcome you, and we'll turn the floor over to you.
Thank you, and good morning. In your own way, let's reach out toward the Creator. To the sovereign Almighty God, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world's and they that dwell therein. Psalms 24. This morning, O Lord, we honor and entreat your presence over our country, our city, and our county. We stand grateful for your grace and innumerable mercies toward us. May we find favor, rather, that in you, in all things that would please you and give you glory. May your favor remain on us, your courage in us to lead, to govern, and to be an effective citizenry, to honor one another as we would honor our own selves, and to be a better version of ourselves today than we were yesterday. Let your grace rest on us. To that end, may we pray earnestly for one another, for each family in our city and our county, for their health and for their prosperity, for their equitable protections under our laws and systems. For our frontline workers, oh God, we thank you. For our sick and infirmed, we entreat you for their healing and their deliverance. For our poor, may they find your kindness. For our elected officials, we pray for their wisdoms and their courage. For our fellow brothers and sisters, that we may remain awakened to the plight of one another, so that we would live in empathy and true righteousness in you. Sovereign God, we owe you everything, including this particular moment in time in history. May we make the most of it with renewed vigor and passion for your name's sake. We ask these things in your name, and may your name forever be praised. Amen.
And thank you, Pastor Fletcher. We'll tell Terry you brought it.
Amen.
Thank you very much. The Pledge of Allegiance will be delivered by students Sharia and Sharia Wright from the Sweetwater Springs Community School, La Mesa Spring Valley School District. We welcome both of them, and thank you for leading our Pledge of Allegiance today.
Good morning. Thank you.
Put your right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Amen.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for that wonderful pledge and for joining us today. We are very, very, very grateful to have you join us today. Good job. Good, Mom, they did good.
All right, thank you.
Thank you both. We'll now proceed with our proclamations. We only have one proclamation today, and it's my privilege to honor Moss Pace, and accepting this proclamation will be Ismahan Abdullahi, the Executive Director. As February just came to an end, we want to really honor the closing of Black History Month by recognizing one of San Diego's wonderful Black-led community-based organizations, Moss Pace San Diego. Moss Pace San Diego is a division of the Muslim American Society whose primary mission is to educate, advocate for, and mobilize the San Diego Muslim community in political affairs and civic activities on a nonpartisan basis. Moss Pace is committed to centering and investing in the next generation of youth and community advocates to build the skills needed to develop a more inclusive and imaginative vision for San Diego. Through its organizational activities, Moss Pace contributes to the promotion of peace and social justice. Hate crimes against Muslims are at an all-time high. 60 to 62% of Muslims report they have faced religious-based discrimination in the previous year. If we want to build a county that works for all, not just for some, we must continue to fight for racial justice and continue to fight against xenophobia and Islamophobia, especially for working and low-income communities. And I want to applaud the great work that is being done here. Therefore, it is my privilege as chair, along with the entire San Diego County Board of Supervisors, on this second day of March 2021, to declare this day to be Mosque Pace Day throughout San Diego County. Thank you and congratulations. And with us here today to accept this award and make a few remarks is Ismahan Abdullahi. And we are thrilled to have you join us, the Executive Director. Thank you for your work and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Chair Fletcher. Good morning and salams and peace be with you all. Mass Pace and our entire Mass family members want to extend our sincere gratitude to Chair Fletcher and his team for this recognition. We are humbled and honored by this proclamation. Many of our members work daily to provide a roof over their heads for their family, go to school, and make this county better. So this proclamation, this recognition is for our youth and youth leaders, our Youth Justice League team, who work hard to demand and belong in democracy and to move our community towards increased civic and political engagement. This is for our elders who paved the path for us and instilled in us the values, the principles, and sincerity in which we approach our work. And this is for our county. We know and can do better and truly be a county for all people, not just those who are wealthy, have power, or the relationships to decision makers. We are in Kumeyaay land, and in the spirit of our justice work and receiving this honorable proclamation from Chair Supervisor Fletcher, I end with an advice. In any space that we are in, if we don't bring into the room the presence and the deep history of people whose lives were lost or impacted due to systemic oppression, then we are being complicit in the face of injustice. Always ask yourself who is missing from the conversation, who's not here and should be here, whose voice and basic existence is being hidden or erased. And when we forget to uplift those stories, our collective history, and those people and organizations, we forget the true purpose of our movement, which is the liberation of all our people. Silence is complicity, tokenization is not inclusivity, lip service to equity is not honorable, and solidarity work is liberation work. Thank you so much, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you very much for joining us and for all of your work. Next on the agenda is non-agendized public communication. This is an opportunity for the public to address the board on subject matters within the board's jurisdiction, but not on an item on today's agenda. The only action the board may take is a referral to the Chief Administrative Officer. Reminder, according to Rule 4A, members of the public that are non-English speaking and need interpretation assistance will get twice the allotted time for their comments. Before we go into public comment, I know that we have a number of speakers on an issue as it relates to San Pasqual Academy. And I just want to share that while the county had no role in terminating the San Pasqual Academy pilot extension program, I know how devastating this news has been on the students, alumni, and supporters of SPA. In February, our Child Welfare Services Director received a letter from the California Department of Social Services notifying us of their decision to terminate the SPA pilot program in October of 2021. Under this temporary extension, the county was allowed to keep SPA as a placement option for certain foster teens, even though state law eliminated the use of congregate care settings under reforms adopted by the state legislature in 2015. This followed the passage of the Federal Family First Prevention Act, which eliminates federal funding from supporting congregate care settings like San Pasqual. And all of these things have put us in this very difficult situation today of trying to chart our best way forward as a board. I know Kim Giardino, our Child Welfare Director, has assured us that every child that resides at SPA, along with their trusted adults, will be engaged in creating an individual plan. And I know that we all want to work to do everything we can to support these kids and the supporters and everyone who has worked so hard over the years. I am supportive of us requesting a 9-month extension to October from the state. Would buy us a little bit more time to work on a smooth transition, get another graduating class. We don't know if that's viable. We don't know if it will be granted. We don't know what the budget impacts, but there are multiple convenings coming forward for folks to make their voice heard. In addition to our board meeting today on March 10th, 2021, the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board Subcommittee on Child and Family Services will be discussing this item. We encourage people to weigh in there. On March 12th, 2021, the Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board will have a discussion around this along with all of the various options that could be considered. And then on March 16th, I'm requesting the CAO to bring an item before the board to update the board on the status, on the history, along with some input and feasibility of various different options so that this full board can discuss and weigh and ask questions on March 16th. So we have some time. We want to make sure we do this right. We want every child to know they will be cared for, and we will do everything to ensure a smooth process forward. But again, I know and understand folks' frustration and around something that is changing and closing, and we're committed to doing everything we can to make this as seamless and smooth and explore every option that exists to us on how we might best care for our foster kids. So with that, let me ask the clerk to call forward our non-agendized public speakers today.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. We have 21 requests to speak on matters not listed on the agenda. Any members of the public that have requested to speak during non-agenda public communication, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. As a reminder for the callers, if you requested to speak on a specific agenda item, please hang up and call back when the board begins discussion of the item. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record. You will have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear the sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I would remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could please identify the first caller.
Thank you. Our first caller is 7223.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brent Lowe. I serve the community as a youth mentor and a coach. I coach both basketball and football teams. I recently took my boys to a basketball practice in Rainbow in North County and was shocked when hearing that the county is considering permitting marijuana outlets in the unincorporated areas, especially right now under our current situation with COVID. From my experience, I know firsthand how difficult it has been for teens to deal with isolation, academic confusion, and anxiety, and a social media culture that suggests that marijuana is the solution for anxiety. This is becoming a glaring problem that parents and adults who work with teens are facing to some degree. Mental health issues, suicidal ideation, and using pot as a safe and normal solution. By permitting more shops and grows, you're only reinforcing the idea of normality of drug use to youth. The idea of locating marijuana storefronts in communities near the sports fields and parks where our teens congregate and play sports is both ill-advised and, in my opinion, will look back as a huge mistake. According to the Journal of American Medical Association Pediatrics, recent study out of Ohio State University reports that youth with mood disorders who use and abuse marijuana have a higher risk for self-harm, death by all causes, and death by unintentional overdose and homicide. Marijuana use disorder was documented in more than 10% of youth with mood disorders. I highly encourage you to consider these findings and rethink your position on locating more marijuana businesses in our county. There are plenty enough right now. Youth will suffer while pot profiteers will thrive. In this way, the county wants to use its momentum towards better mental health outcomes for all. Thank you for my time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7000.
Chairperson Fletcher and fellow supervisors, thank you for allowing me to speak today. My name is John Brady, and I have the honor of leading a group of homeless advocates called Voices of Dignity from the Voices of Our City Choir. I'm addressing you today to thank you for the increased investments in homelessness and health services. At the same time, I want to encourage you to make rapid and significant investments in recuperative care beds, as well as long-term mental health beds and addiction treatment beds. In recent conversations with the San Diego Community Policing Team, they indicated a need for hundreds more of these treatment beds in order to avoid returning to incarceration as the sole solution to mental health and addiction issues. Please accelerate your investments in these areas, and thank you again. Have a good day.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1444. 1444.
Hello, my name's Chris Wade. I'm a father of four and a mentor to young men in my church. And I also wanted to speak about permitting marijuana businesses in the unincorporated area. Like the previous speaker, I'm concerned about that. I appreciate Supervisor Jim Desmond acknowledging the problem when he said, quote, pot shops were an underlying cause of homelessness and behavioral health problems. This is like pouring gasoline on the current crisis, end of quote. When marijuana is commercialized, it normalizes its use for young people who start to think the drug is safe with no risks. We need to be careful that we're not promoting an industry that is identical to big tobacco, that needs to addict its customers in order to increase its bottom line. Marijuana businesses are about big money and young people are the target. The supervisors need to be careful not to send mixed messages when they vote to ban flavored nicotine that you vape on the one hand, but aren't concerned about vaping marijuana, which is the most common method used by our young people. Marijuana is often the first drug youth try, but often not the last, which can lead to more addictive drugs. Vaping marijuana delivers a more potent form of marijuana through vaporized concentrates, which can contain as high as 99% THC. According to Monitoring the Future, in 2019, young people use more potent marijuana and more often. Young people reported vaping marijuana in an increasingly large number since this was first recorded in 2017. It's our duty and responsibility, and yours as the Board of Supervisors, to protect our community and our youth. Public safety and health need to be your priority, and not promoting the marijuana industry's predatory practices. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 4557. 4557.
Thank you, County Board of Supervisors, for taking my call today. My name is Debbie Syverson, and my call is in reference to San Pasqual Academy. County Board of Supervisors, I would like for you to refer also to the study that was paid for by you from the University of California, Davis. And this study was done by Dana Hartman, Gail Goodman, Jackson Grandchamp. Also, it's the Michael J. Lawler, and it is the Pacific Northwest University of Health Sciences. This study was, the preliminary study was given to you in September 2020, and I want to read some of the highlight summaries from that study. San Pasqual Academy, providing comprehensive residential education services for foster youth, emerging adults, University of California, Davis report. Executive summary, for both current residents and alumni who are highly diverse in racial, ethnic background, there are no gender or ethnic differences in outcomes. This suggests that the Academy treats all its students equally. Results to date indicate that the Academy does an excellent job of providing its students with high quality, comprehensive residential support and education programs. The Academy also helps their alumni successfully transition into adulthood. Education and training. The Academy is doing an excellent job in motivating students to pursue higher education. Summary, San Pasqual Academy's dedication to provide a home-like environment for foster teens, which extends to all aspects of their life, their personal growth, their healthy development, school, work readiness, life skills, health care. It is exceptional. Regarding alumni, these figures in the report suggest that San Pasqual Academy experience, which encourages focusing and post-secondary education, slows students rush into youthful marriage and parenting.
Thank you, ma'am. Your
Thank
time is up. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 0369. 0369.
Good morning, honorable supervisors. My name is Lois Jones, and I'm speaking about San Pasquale Academy. The tragic threatening to close San Pasquale Academy is really just about the kids. These young people need us. Their families are not there for them. The system is too broken to be there for them. There are no foster parents available who will want them. They won't get a good education. They won't have hope for college. They won't have people in their life they can trust. They have nowhere to turn if you take this away from them. The statistics of success speak for themselves. 94% graduation rate? Really? Even regular high schools don't break 90%. There are multiple studies proving this is the right program for foster teens. This is not a group home. This is a residential high school for foster teens. Understand the difference. Recognize the benefits. Help these young people put their lives on a path for success. Healing begins here. Their friends live here. Their security rests in this school. Trust is built here, and hope is ever present here. They learn to be social and civil and polite. They can actually believe they are valuable and capable to be anything they want to be. And they remain supported post-graduation as they transition into adulthood and go on to secondary education. They are not left out in the cold as soon as they turn 18. This program and community creates wonderful adults. This program is the right way to help foster teens, all foster teens. Placing them back into a standard county program thrusts them back into unstable environments, abuse, and neglect. The very things they were removed from. Why is that a better option? So tell us why you abandon it and why you think it's a good idea to close the school and program instead of growing it. Fight to keep it open, but tell us why if you don't. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 2153. 2153.
Good morning. Good morning. This is Kelly McCormick, and I'm calling to speak against the permitting of marijuana businesses in the unincorporated areas. It was just a few months ago that the proposal was rejected, and rightfully so. And bringing this issue back so quickly and without consulting the county planning groups is just not the right way to go. They have not had an opportunity to be asked about their positions on this and to give it the study by them that it really needs, because they're the ones that are going to be affected. And I'd like to point out that cannabis's status is not legal federally, and that is important here because it means that these farms do not have the right to farm that's usually recognized in agricultural districts, as meaning that the neighbors can't legally object to, say, noise from tractors or the smell of fermentation of grapes. That is not covering the cannabis farms because they are not federally legal. So the reason I bring this up is that in Santa Barbara County, wineries are suing the county over permitting marijuana farms because of the horrible smell, and it's affecting the tasting rooms, it's affecting the grape production, it's affecting tourism, and the people that live near the marijuana farms can't open their windows, they can't enjoy the outdoors because the smell is so bad, and they really don't have any recourse. So currently they're suing the county over even permitting these farms. So I would just like you to be aware of that, and also to keep in mind that this is a water consumption issue as well, and pesticides and fungicides and the rodenticides, because as we all know, marijuana is a crop that is very prone to mold and fungus. So please think about that. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 6676. 6676.
Good morning. My name is Katie Paponiak. I am surprised to see that San Pasqual Academy is closing. I was part of the initial group that planned and worked in this ideal setting to guide, mentor, and educate foster youth, assisting them with life skills they would need to make it on their own. Skills their parents were not able to offer. Yes, a dream, far from perfect. San Pasqual was created under the premise that 80% of their parents were sidelined due to drug and alcohol use. I doubt that problem has been solved. A high percentage of foster youth become part of our homeless population. Now the County Board of Supervisors are directing staff to develop a social equity program to rectify the injustices caused by the war on drugs. Is the war on drugs really over? Where is the justice in this idea? The marijuana industry is counting on making beaucoup bucks at the expense of our rural communities and kids. As we heard in the first presentation this morning, whose voice is not heard here? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 4592. 4592.
I want to make sure I'm not missing something important here.
Good morning. My name is Kathleen Lippett, the morning chair and fellow supervisors. In attending county planning groups, it is clear that this board decided months ago that unincorporated area stakeholders deserve neither respect nor consideration. Last night's Fallbrook Community Planning Group was reflective of the concerns expressed by the working people in rural communities. Most were shocked that a few new board members would set out to upend their lives that they had built and the unique close-knit communities they loved. Without preamble or regard, you rolled out a plan that would change their lives and communities for decades, if not forever. The chair of one of their ad hoc committees summed up this debacle well. This ordinance is neither simple nor easy. It is layer after layer. The more questions that we ask, the more questions that come up. They recognize their residents and community-friendly businesses were not being asked, but were being forced to cope with the issues of cultivation, odor, fencing, armed guards, crime, drivers under the influence, and worst of all, increased drug use. You insisted numerous times on January 27 that this was the very beginning of ordinance development. There would be robust outreach to all stakeholders. You didn't mention outreach had already taken place months before, not to the true stakeholders whose lives and communities would be turned upside down, but the ones that you were elected to serve, but those you chose to serve, who stood to exploit and profit in the unincorporated communities, not even in your districts. County staff are already receiving from marijuana profiteers questions about how fast they can get their permits. They knew this was coming. They thanked you profusely for your plan and for listening to them. You gifted this industry everything from vertical integration to consumption lounges. They relish the opportunities to exploit another population in addition to the low and minority communities they have exploited for decades. Your plan is not thoughtful, responsible, socially, or economically equitable to those you promised to serve.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is 2670. 2670.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Simone Higgs Monroe, former foster youth, Child and Family Strengthening Advisory Board rep, and proud alumni of San Pasqual Academy. I'm here today to express the commitment we, the foster youth community, have to the advancement of the current foster care system. We must be active partners in creating the best opportunity for foster youth in response to this shutdown and the future of San Pasqual Academy. We stand to change the narrative of foster youth. We are the solution, the experts. We are current and former foster youth who have achieved various levels of success in our lives, including becoming credible leaders within our communities with the knowledge and ability to thrive in the foster care system. We ask to be treated as partners through the entire decision-making process of San Pasqual Academy. We must work together on bridging the gaps by placing current and former foster youth in positions of power. and allow us the opportunity to build the framework of the future foster care system. We as partners. Over the last 20 years, our community has built a culture on the foundation of hope, connection, resilience, achievement, and togetherness. These elements of the San Pasqual Academy, created by the caring adults and embodied by its students, must be part of the future. As we begin to make decisions regarding former, current, and future foster youth, we must empower each and every young person to be a part of the decision-making of their own future. San Pasqual Academy provides a safe and encouraging solution to stop the placement culture and instead create choice. Foster youth will know the decisions made for the foster care system are in conjunction with a community who have succeeded through the same experiences they will face. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8688. 8688.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes, and what I wanted to talk about was the Voice of San Diego article today on how homeless are that are in hospitals are being basically thrown out onto the street without access to the county provided hotel rooms as part of Project Room Key. You know, San Diego County has 640 hotel rooms they secured in 3 hotels. And 2 weeks ago, the occupancy was 92%. This week, it's down to 85%. And the reason for that is somewhere your county staff and your policy team that I guess is part of the Chief Administrator Officer, Board of Supervisors, and staff has decided to not allow anyone else into these project homeroom hotel rooms. So hundreds or thousands of people are on these county waiting lists to get to these hotel rooms. They're not being allowed to actually put new people into these hotel rooms. And the other thing is that people who go to the hospital, and if they're there more than 48 hours, even with a medical excuse, they can't go back into the Project Room Key after they leave the hospitals. This is, you know, not right. You have 640 rooms secure. You told staff to, I would assume, to let as many people in these rooms as possible, and instead you're not allowing that to happen. So what I was going to ask if you could forward my issue to the county administration officer and some board of supervisors to make sure that we get all 640 hotel rooms occupied. Right now, there's 98 hotel rooms that could be used for the homeless that are not being used because of this new policy change that I'm not sure, nobody told me about, and I'm not sure if they told anybody at the Board of Supervisors about. So please change that and please move my issue to the CAO. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 4592. 4592. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. And if we don't hear from you when your number is called, we will come back to you. Our next speaker is 0874. 0874.
Hi, this is Jen Scott, and I'm with Friends of San Pasqual Academy. I am here on behalf of Saving San Pasqual Academy. It is urgent that this home and school is not closed. San Pasqual Academy has been a place to heal, form lasting relationships, gain trust, receive therapy, and develop their gifts and talents. They are prepared for a bright future. They can remain in one place, attend one school, participate in sports, art, music, and other activities. They are not just a foster child. They are a peer mentor, athlete, scholar, high school graduate, and even a college-bound senior. They are our kids. They can attain many of their goals and dreams guided by caring staff, teachers, counselors, their San Pasqual house parents and San Pasqual grandparents, and many dedicated supporters. They learn about what a family should be, one that does not harm them and instead protects them and cares for them. They all receive scholarships to trade schools and colleges. When their dorms are closed during the summers and on holiday breaks, they come home and stay in transitional housing on campus. The phrase, "it is good to be back home," is heard repeatedly. This is why San Pasqual County was formed. There are over 2,100 foster kids in the county. Surely more would benefit being placed at San Pasqual. Foster kids not living at San Pasqual have a higher risk of dropping out of school and becoming homeless. The reality is that foster teens have been removed from ongoing abuse and neglect from family members. We all want kids to remain with their families, but not at the risk of keeping them in dangerous situations. They have been traumatized. We must put their safety first. Take a tour of the campus and learn the truth. Do what is right and save San Pasqual Academy now. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7234. 7234.
Good morning. My name is Terry Ann Skelly, and I live and work in San Diego County. I'm a mother of 3 adult sons whose adult, educational, and economic trajectory have been disrupted by COVID, their future plans hijacked. Imagine my surprise that in my planning group this month, we discussed Supervisor Fletcher and Vargas's plan that would help them to operate a pot business. I'm stunned by this suggestion. Our planning group did not request this plan, and my family and neighbors never asked for this. However, what my sons do need, all our sons need, is educational opportunities, technical skills, and equipment to pursue their education and work and internship possibilities. Could we put the county's money there instead? Now more than ever, they need this type of assistance, and the county public health needs to send strong drug use prevention messages that would go a long way to assist these vulnerable young adults. If the Board of Supervisors really care about fairness and an equal playing ground, give our youth a clear pathway to education and jobs, not pot businesses. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1822. 1822.
Good morning. This is Peggy Walker, and I want to express my concern after attending a Fallbrook Community Planning Group meeting at how the proposed marijuana ordinance is being railroaded onto our unincorporated areas when there's been no call for it. It is especially ironic after hearing Chair Fletcher say that addiction reduction and treatment, which are already overwhelming our system, are priorities in his State of the County address. If these are priorities, why are you pushing widespread commercialization of addictive, high-potency marijuana products throughout our county? At the Fallbrook meeting, I heard talk of a general blanket ordinance with blanket CEQA exemption, which couldn't begin to address the unique needs of areas as diverse as Fallbrook and Hamul, Julian and Campo. Lacking were specifics regarding things like serious groundwater issues, pesticides, the grab for wide swaths of farmland that's sure to take place, size limits, odor and crime controls, and enforcement directed to specific communities or individual environmental reviews, which are so necessary. I heard no guarantees of a strong conditional use permit process or public hearings. Sadly, this very expensive proposal eliminates all local control and puts critical land use, environmental, and lifestyle decisions in the hands of county staff and 5 supervisors, 2 of whom have either none or only a small amount of unincorporated area in their districts. And unfortunately, also in the hands of aggressive industry lobbyists who are very skillful at brokering backroom deals. This proposal should not be approved. There's been one meeting. Thank you.
Our next speaker is 2965. 2965.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Excuse me, I am KB Strange. I'm a pharmacist, and I attended the county planning group of District 3, the San Diego Planning Group. I'm calling this morning to thank my supervisor for the rental assistance program workshop she is sponsoring tomorrow night, and for the workshop last week regarding COVID. And because I'll be at work tomorrow when the supervisors look at the idea of marijuana businesses in the unincorporated regions of the county that my pharmacy serves, I wanted to share my concerns with my supervisor that this potential policy is moving way too quickly and is leaving too many of the stakeholders behind. I feel that the medical community, parent groups, and public health agencies have been left out. And this is an unwise start for a board that wants to be transparent and inclusive. When I look at the county's website regarding the timeline for the proposed policy, I noted that the county staff and supervisors met with the marijuana industry before it met with the citizens of the unincorporated areas and their representatives in planning groups. Since there is a lot of money to be made by the marijuana industry, I'm questioning the board enabling one business ahead of other businesses, and in fact seems to be going the extra mile to push for it. That seems an unfortunate precedent to set in these financially uncertain times where the county has many demands on its funds, which is the money of the people, as well as the valuable time of staff. And now I see proposed $500,000 for consultants just to pave the way for pop businesses. Thank you for listening, and I hope you consider these issues. I'd like to let my wife, Ann, talk to you before she has to leave for work.
Thank you, Ann here. This is new for me, and I appreciate it just taking a few minutes before I have to go to work. Something that has been of grave concern to me is that the issue of providing marijuana businesses in the backcountry is an equity issue. I think looking at it this way is prejudicial, inaccurate, and just unkind. People of color have been arrested and incarcerated for all crimes disproportionately. Crimes associated with drugs is just one type of crime. The issue is in the enforcement of the law, not the laws themselves. To incorrectly describe the situation as a problem with the laws around drugs minimizes, it marginalizes the real issue, which is the way that all our laws are enforced. And this does a disservice to those of us trying to change that pattern. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 3800. 3800.
Good morning. My name is Barbara Gordon. As a county resident, we need to know the real cost and consequences of marijuana businesses. As San Diego faces an unprecedented overdose crisis that is being exacerbated by the pandemic and economic downturn, is now really the time to consider another addictive drug. If it's tax revenue you're looking for, it will never cover the real cost of permitting marijuana businesses. Significant time and expense will fall to our already overburdened Sheriff's Department for the enforcement of these new laws. The county must also consider the cost of marijuana-related issues like drug driving, car crashes, mental and other health issues due to the increase of marijuana use, emergency rooms, hospital administrations related to marijuana, and just as important are the environmental costs of marijuana waste and groundwater usage. Now is not the time. As a policymaker, I am concerned you are allowing the marijuana industry to influence your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7227. 7277. 7277. 7277. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. And if we don't hear from you when your number is called, we will come back to you. Our next speaker is 6356. 6356. 6356.
Good morning, Board of Supervisors. My name is Dylan Rapp. I'm a high school student trying to navigate through online learning and the ups and downs of football and basketball seasons being open and then closed and now open again. Currently, we've been given the opportunity to play, which I'm very grateful for. Now that we've had the go-ahead and practices are resuming, I'm surprised and disappointed with the turnout of athletes. I'm recognizing the negative effects of drugs and alcohol on teens during the pandemic. Star athletes are coming to practice out of shape and lacking serious motivation if they come at all. Many of them have been home smoking pot and getting high. It's normal to hear them talk about how easy it is to get pot. Pot can be delivered to your house and no one ever checks IDs. It's kind of a joke. I feel like the county has forgotten about young adults and teens voting in favor of more pot shops and grows. Sends the message to us that pot is safe to use. Why would we need more marijuana than there already is here? It's everywhere. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 1357. 1357. One, 357. Please press *6 to unmute yourself. One, 357. Again, if we don't hear from you when your number is called, we will come back to you. Our next speaker is 3482. 1357. Go ahead.
Good morning, Supervisors. My name is Kathy Lathram, and I am shocked and concerned about the proposed plan to close San Pasquale Academy for many reasons. The 9-month extension is not adequate. It needs to have a permanent status to be open because it is not a regular group home. The UC Davis describes that and lists many benefits and how it benefits the foster kids in so many ways, and it also saves taxpayers' money, and taxpayers' money is well spent. It has a 92 to 94% graduation rate. It provides a nurturing home and school for foster teens that receive all the support needed in one place. There has been so much invested in the school, 20 years worth, and it can't be replaced. The San Diego Chargers helped build the football field. The Padres and Major League Baseball Commission built a softball field. Cottages are upgraded regularly by the help of volunteers. The swimming pool was recently updated just 2 years ago, and there's a wonderful agricultural program out there that the kids participate in growing organic produce, and it helps the San Pasquale Academy be self-sustaining. All these improvements and other investments for the campus were the betterment of high school activities, and a large percentage were generously donated by many supporters and donors and organizations. Ultimately, though, this is about the teens at San Pasquale Academy, and these are the young people who are the ones who will suffer the full force of this closure. I encourage all of you to tour this amazing place, hopefully before March 16th. With your help and support, we can work together to continue to serve the foster teams. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 3482. 3482.
Good morning. My name is Grace Ann. I'm a 17-year-old senior in high school. I'm speaking today because I have seen some of my friends and classmates become addicted to vaping. It makes me sad for them and really angry that tobacco and marijuana companies are using flavors to get kids hooked. Thank you. I thank the county for banning the sale of flavored tobacco and encourage you to adopt a similar ban on the sale of flavored marijuana vaping products and edibles. Did you know that marijuana vape cartridges and edibles contain more than 90% pure THC? They are made using highly concentrated THC oil. This is really dangerous because marijuana use can lead to addiction and cause mental health problems. Many teens already struggle with depression and anxiety. Using marijuana to try and cope is only going to make their problems worse. I've been doing research on this, and I've seen reports that teens who use marijuana are more likely to attempt suicide. This is a tragedy that can be prevented. Teens and young adults prefer tobacco and marijuana products with a sweet or fruity flavor. They often do not realize that something like a pot gummy or a mango crush flavored vape pen could cause harm. The county could lead the way in protecting health by adding flavored marijuana to its ban on flavored tobacco products. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 9967. 9967.
Good morning. My name is Jim Mendelson. I'm a retired Orange County prosecutor and a 12-year resident of Fallbrook. I'm opposed to the proposal to allow marijuana facilities in unincorporated areas of Orange County. However, the board is not willing to reconsider that decision. I am specifically opposed to the measures to provide economic access and equity in the cannabis industry. The social equity program priority is illogical. The fact that minorities are disproportionately affected by the war on drugs, I submit, is unsubstantiated for San Diego County, rather a talking point adopted from other jurisdictions. Building a foundation of a program with criminals is patently absurd. The proposed measure asks for reduced barriers to entry for cannabis facility ownership for those individuals with past cannabis arrests or convictions. This is one example of how this entire proposal is way too general and overbroad. While it might be argued that it could be applicable for simple H&S Code 11357 simple possessions of marijuana crimes, which are convictions which are currently being purged, it's certainly not applicable for sections 11359 possession of marijuana for sales, or the 11360 transportation, sale, or furnishing felony convictions, all moral turpitude. The social equity portion of this measure needs to be deleted. I would also submit that the entire measure is broad brush aimed at all unincorporated communities, ignores the reality that the culture and climate in many such communities in San Diego County are vastly different. For instance, Ramona, Borrego Springs, and Fallbrook all present differing needs and concerns, differing population density, number of schools, open space, distance from cities with dispensaries, etc. The impact of this ordinance, in which a majority of the county supervisors, not to be flippant, but don't even have a dog in the fight in their district, on each of these communities needs to be studied individually with any resultant ordinances allowing adult use closely tailored to the community. You're trying to make it so citizens have to drive further to get an In-N-Out burger than their psychoactive drugs. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7277. 7277. 7277, please press *6 to unmute yourself. If not, we will go to 2639. 2639. If you'd like to address the board on an item that's not on today's agenda, please press *6 to unmute yourself now. If not, we will go to 8358. 8358. 8358. And finally, we have 9887. 9887. These are our last remaining speakers on non-agenda public comments. I'll call these numbers one more time, and then if we don't hear from anybody, that will conclude the non-agenda public comment. So we have 7277, 7277, 2639, 2639, 8358, 8358, and 9887. This is your last call if you'd like to address the board.
Hello?
Hi there.
Hi. Sorry about that, technical difficulties. My name is Carol Green. I live in South Bay, San Diego, and I'm here to talk to you about a couple of things. I know that it's been a high priority for San Diego County to address mental health issues, and they've become particularly exacerbated during this pandemic. Unfortunately, I have a horrible story to tell, which I'm not going to be able to tell all of it in 2 minutes, but My son, who experienced mental health issues but was doing really well, was attending San Diego State, was starting a business, and was really thriving under careful medical, psychiatric care and prescription drugs that were prescribed by his psychiatrist. After a year or so at San Diego State, his friends convinced him that he should switch from the prescribed drugs from his psychiatrist to the, quote, all-natural drug of marijuana. He and I had a couple of talks about this because I never thought it was a good idea, and I begged him not to, but at the time he was living on his own over by San Diego State. And he told me that if it wasn't safe, it wouldn't be legal, it wouldn't be regulated, and I didn't know what I was talking about because the county, the city, everyone had regulated it and had said it was safe. Come to find out that marijuana can trigger psychotic disorders in some people, and my son was one of those people. He experienced psychosis. I can't go into all of it. It was awful, horrible, horrible, horrible. He was hospitalized 3 different times in 3 different counties, and finally was on the way to recovery when he had a mental breakdown and lost his life. So I just would like for you, this is not just statistics, these are real people, kids that you know that are suffering from this. So please consider, don't try to support mental health and then take it all away by the things that you say and do. Thank you.
Thank you. Final call for 7277 and 8358.
Good morning. My name is Diane Grace, and I want to express my gratitude for the recent court ruling which bans marijuana advertising on billboards along interstate highways. This was the final ruling in a public interest lawsuit filed in 2019 by San Luis Obispo resident Matthew Farmer, a father of 2, who argued that the billboards were illegal under California Proposition 64 and wrongfully exposed his children and millions of others to cannabis and advertising. As it states in the Business and Professionals Code, Section 26152D, enacted under Proposition 64, a licensee shall not advertise or market on a billboard or similar advertising device located on an interstate highway or on a state highway which crosses the California border. His attorney stated, "This ruling is a major triumph on several fronts. It is a victory for all Californians over the desires of unelected Sacramento bureaucrats who illegally tried to put corporate profits ahead of children's health. This is long overdue, and the sooner the billboards are removed, the better. While on car rides as a child with my family, the best way to ease boredom was to see who could read the billboards first. I also did this with my own children and now grandchildren. Marijuana is not the message people want to see on billboards, and certainly not a healthy message for children to see while in a car or anywhere. Thank you."
Thank you. And final call for 8358. 8358, if you'd like to address the board, please press *6 now. *8358. If not, then that concludes the non-agenda public communications. Chair Fletcher.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all of our callers who called in. Next on our agenda is approval of the board meeting minute statement of proceedings for our February 9th, 2021 meeting.
So moved.
I have a motion by Supervisor Vargas and a second by myself. I will ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now proceed with the formation of the consent calendar. Before I go to my colleagues, I'll ask the clerk if there are any items the public wishes to be pulled for discussion.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Item 1 has been pulled by the public. Item 2 has been pulled by the public. Item 3 has been pulled by the public. Item 6 has been pulled by the public. Item 7 has been pulled by the public. Item 10 is being continued to the March 16th, 2021 meeting. Item 12 has been pulled by the public. Item 13 has been pulled by the public. Item 17 is a presentation matter. Item 21 has been pulled by the public. And item 23 has been pulled by the public. Item 26 are closed session matters that will be considered at the conclusion of the board's public session, and also note that we have 2 requests to speak on closed session matters that will be heard before the board adjourns to closed session. With that, all the remaining items on the Board of Supervisors agenda may be placed in the consent calendar for your board's consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. I'll now go to my colleague, Supervisor Anderson. Are there any items you wish pulled?
I do not have any.
All right, Supervisor Lawson-Remer.
No, thanks.
Supervisor Desmond?
Yes, I have a comment on one. Andrew, can you, which item did you say was continued? I missed that.
Item 10.
Item 10, yes.
Item 10 was continued, okay. I just have a quick comment on item 14. That was not pulled, is that correct?
That's correct, that was not pulled.
Okay, just on item 14, this is amending the small business program agreement with the San Diego Foundation. Last year, the board approved a program. Supervisor Jacob and myself introduced this and was provided small businesses that were provided small business loans to those businesses impacted due to COVID. Since that time, the program was a success with all $5 million expended. During the underwriting of the loans, the administrator of the program identified it was over 71,600, so I appreciate today's action. The San Diego Foundation for covering those overcommitted costs, which actually went to businesses and will be repaid. So I just want to say thank you very much for item 14.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Vice Chair Vargas.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I don't want to pull anything, but however, I do want to make sure that I, on the record, note that although I was on the Southwestern College governing board when the bond was created, and I did a lot of the work on that issue, I was no longer on the board when this item came and was approved by the board this February. So I just want to make sure that that's on the record, but I'm happy to support it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have no items to pull. I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Motion by myself, second by Vice Chair Vargas. I will ask the clerk one time before we vote to just confirm the items that have been pulled for discussion today and then call the roll.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. The items that the board will be discussing this morning are items 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 12, 13, 17, 21, 23, and 26 are closed session matters. With that, Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
Thank you. We will move into our agenda. We'll start with agenda item 1, public safety power shutoffs, addressing gaps and improving coordinations. This is a letter that's been brought forward to us today by Supervisors Anderson and Desmond. I would like to ask them if they have any introductory comments they would like to make before we see if there are any requests for public speakers.
Before the supervisors begin their comments, any members of the public that requested to speak on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. Thank you.
Chair Fletcher, I'd like to make a couple comments on this one.
Supervisor. Yes, sir.
Let's allow the callers to call in here. First of all, want to thank Supervisor Anderson for authoring this board letter with me. This is concerning the public safety power shutoffs that can really disrupt your life, especially in unincorporated areas. Fallbrook actually had their power shut off on Christmas Eve, but rightfully so. There was a fire burning on Camp Pendleton. And as annoying as they can be, the shutoffs actually aid in preventing mass devastation throughout our county, as we witnessed in 2003 and 2007. It's not just the rural areas that are impacted. Many of our cities, including San Diego, the city has had power cut off for prolonged period of times during these wildfires. During the 2019 public safety power shutoffs, we received a call from Caltrans regarding the duration of the shutdown and the battery life at a traffic signal at a major intersection in the unincorporated area. The battery on the traffic signal had died, and leaving residents to kind of fend for themselves in the dark on two roads intersecting at 55 miles an hour. So additionally, this road serves, as an emergency evacuation route, and we don't want that happening in nighttime. And so we need to address that. It's clear that the additional strategies and planning were needed to further address the public safety side of a shutdown. Today's board letter will create a greater collaboration with the stakeholders in the county, including SDG&E, who have been our willing partner in this effort. I just want to make sure we dot all the I's and cross all the T's. Item 4 today also deals with the public safety power shutoff and the governor's resiliency plan to provide a funding opportunity to mitigate issues and provide education. I'm grateful that this includes some of the backup batteries at major intersections in the unincorporated area, backup generators at our fire stations, and backup generators for our COVID-19 lab and the Health and Human Services complex at Rosecrans. I do want to make one change, though, on item 3 in the recommendation. I'd like to change that the report return date, change it from 120 days to 180 days, since our Office of Emergency Services is also staffing the COVID-19 operation. So they're doing double duty. So I'd like to make a motion to support this item with the amendment of the timing change.
All right, we have a motion by Supervisor Desmond to approve agenda item 1 with the amendment in recommendation 3 of striking 120 days and replacing it with 180 days. Let me go to Supervisor Anderson, who co-doctored this item, see if he has any comments he'd like to make.
Well, I'd like to start off by seconding the motion, but I want to thank Supervisor Desmond for recognizing how important this is to my district in reaching out and including me in this motion. And Supervisor Desmond, thank you very much. It was very thoughtful of you and showed why you're the senior member and I'm the junior member, but I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Let me ask the clerk if there's, I believe we have one request for public comment on this item.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Yes, we have one request to speak on this item, and we'll identify the caller by the last 4 digits of their phone number. They'll have 2 minutes to address the board, and we'll ask that they please state their name for the audio record.
Yes, 0771. You may proceed. 0771.
Great. Good morning, Chair Fletcher and members of the Board of Supervisors. My name is Joe Gabalden. I'm SDG&E's Public Affairs Manager, speaking on behalf of our 4,400 colleagues. As you may be aware, the mission for SDG&E is to be the cleanest, safest, most reliable energy infrastructure company in America. Safety is the foundation of everything we do. SDG&E has spent more than a decade focused on investments in local projects and programs aimed at reducing wildfire risk, education, preparedness, defensible space programs, climate adaptation, and overall regional resiliency. Public safety power shutoffs are an important tool to keep the region safe. We do not take this responsibility lightly and only use shutoffs as a last resort. SDG&E routinely works with public agencies, tribal governments to gather feedback on public safety power shutoffs. And after every red flag warning season, stakeholders are contacted for their ideas and suggestions. These efforts have been successful due to the partnerships with tribal governments, other local governments, as well as public safety personnel, fire safe councils, CERT groups, 211 San Diego, and the Red Cross. We support this item and look forward to working with your staff to secure additional feedback and enhance coordination. Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you. Let me ask any of my colleagues if they have any additional comments to make on agenda item 1.
I have a comment.
Please.
So I just wanted to say I think this is great. You know, we've been able to avoid many of the vast fires that have ravaged communities across the state since 2013. And it's clear that the hardening, molding, and warning systems that SDG implemented contributed to that reduction. So we're eager to support the work of staff in any way we can. I just would like to emphasize here that it's important that our PSP investments are being aligned with our climate change goals and our GHG reductions goals, including things like rooftop solar and distributed storage. So just wanted to keep that in mind as we sort of think about making sure that we're making the investments we need in our energy systems.
All right, thank you. Any other board member comments? Hearing none, we have a motion by Supervisor Desmond, a second by Supervisor Anderson to adopt the recommendations in agenda item 1 with the change to recommendation 3, striking 120 days and replacing with 180 days. With that, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
We'll now move to agenda item 2, support for Senate Bill 248, open court proceedings for sexually violent predators. This is a board letter that has been brought forward by Supervisor Anderson and our District Attorney, Summer Steffen. I believe our District Attorney is on the line. Let me go first to Supervisor Anderson and ask if you have any introductory comments you'd like to make on this item, and then we'll hear from our District Attorney.
And before the supervisor begins, any members of the public that requested to speak in this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions provided to you. You will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Thank you.
Earlier this year, we all decided as a board to get more active with state politics and ensuring that our interests were represented. And when our Attorney General, Steffen, District Attorney Steffen, may have jumped the hoop there a little bit, came forward with this, I was eager to present it to the board because I think it's something that we all can get behind, and I think it makes sense for victims. And with that, I'd like to introduce our District Attorney, if it's appropriate, to allow her to speak to the issue that she best knows.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much, Supervisor Anderson, for bringing this forward, and thank you, Chair, Vice Chair, Supervisors, and Board for this opportunity. I'm asking for your support for SB 248. That is a bill that our office specialists in sex crimes and sexually violent predator law wrote and is being carried by Senator Bates. I believe on the line there are 2 victims that were actually impacted by the closure of the courts because we don't have a direct law on this, Mary Taylor and Cynthia Medina, and also a group that represents Your Voice Has Power that was formed as a result of courtrooms being closed to victims, the public, and the press. This bill is also being supported by the California Newspaper Publishers Association, and I believe Brittany Barsotti is also on the line representing our sacred First Amendment rights. It is what distinguishes American democracy is that our courtrooms are open. There is a place where the courtrooms are being shut recently. I've been doing this for 30 years, and this trend is very recent, and it's only in sexually violent predator cases where there's criminal law and civil law, and sexually violent predator cases fall as a quasi-criminal civil. And for some reason, despite the clear law under Civil Code Procedure 124 that says courtrooms must be open, the courtrooms are getting shut. This is re-victimizing victims of serial horrific rapes that have happened in San Diego. Things are happening behind their back, and there's no transparency. That is not democracy. So we took action. And the action is simply to make it clear that sexually violent predator cases are no exception to the well-established rules of democracy and transparency, but still allowing that balance under subsection B that a court can find exceptional circumstances where the courtroom should be closed. Actually, we call them extraordinary circumstances, but with notice to the parties to be heard. This is a fair and balanced law that protects everybody's rights, and we hope to get a unanimous vote because this is a San Diego law that is a beacon to the state, and we would love your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Supervisor Anderson. Thank you to our district attorney. Let me ask the clerk. I know we have several requests to speak on this item. Let's go to our public speakers, and then we'll return for board deliberation.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. I'll note for the record that we received one e-comment on this item. We have 4 individuals that have requested to address the board on this item and 1 group presentation. As a reminder for the callers, if you do not wish to speak on this item, please hang up and call back when the board begins discussion of the next item. We will be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of their phone number, and we'll begin with the group presentation. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record. And for the individuals, you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. For the group, you'll have 15 minutes to address the board. You'll hear this sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. And I'd remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could please identify the callers for the group presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, 3 of the 4 callers for the group presentation are on the line currently. So we have 2301, 2065, and 2875. So if you could each press *6, you can unmute yourselves and address the board. Please state your names when you begin.
Hello, my name is Terry Larson. I'm in support of this SB 48. I'm a part of the group Your Voice Has Power, and I've been in charge of coordinating and asking members of the public to attend these court proceedings. It's been very frustrating asking friends and community members to attend these court proceedings. Many have taken days off work, paid for parking, Uber rides, and then there's also the community members that live in the rural areas that make these long trips to the courthouse, only to get there and sit and wait for hours in the hallway, and then to be told that the courtroom is closed to the public with no explanation. I'm asking for your support of SB 248. Thank you.
Would
Hello?
one of the other members of the group like to go next?
Oh, are we all doing?
Okay. My name is Cynthia Medina. I have been a victim of sexually violent predators since the age of 4. I recognize being here today shows the progress we've made for my rights, but closing us out of the housing wise and the issues involving these predators reverses some of these steps we made in this progress. It makes us feel shame that doesn't belong to us. So let's continue to step out of the dark ages because I'm a survivor, not a victim. Thank you. I support SB 248.
Thank you. And would 2301 like to go next?
Yes. Hello, my name is Mary Taylor. I'm here to ask the San Diego County Board of Supervisors to endorse SB 248, which demands transparency in all legal matters as they pertain to sexually violent predators who have been civilly committed. I'm here both as a survivor of a violent sexual assault and as a member of the community group Your Voice Has Power, a group which I participated in forming back in 2018 to address injustices in the California judicial system as they pertain to the rights of victims of sexually violent predators, as well as the rights of the community to be informed and kept safe. Being the victim of a violent sexual assault leaves scars that run deep. A part of the recovery process is reestablishing your power and control. It is how a person moves from being a victim to a survivor. That is why being part of the legal proceedings that would determine if my assailant would be released was very important to me. I made it my priority. So I used my personal leave time to take time off from work, made my way down to the San Diego Superior Court, paid for parking, went through the elaborate security, stood outside the courtroom in a hot hallway, sometimes for hours, waiting to be let in, only to find out on repeated occasions that the judge decided to close the proceedings, typically with no explanation other than vague references to the plaintiff's rights to privacy. And I was not standing there alone. There were other victims and members of the community, including the media, who were suddenly shut out as well. I want you to understand, it was more than just being inconvenienced and feeling like my time and money were wasted. By closing the court, the judge also closed off all access to the information that he would use in making his decision. How could I or members of the community accept the final decision of the court if we were completely cut off from the information germane to making that decision? It was devastating to realize that my rights did not matter at all, just like they did not matter to my assailant the night he broke into my home and attacked me at knife point. I felt violated and victimized all over again, this time by the courts. SB 248 prioritizes rights guaranteed to citizens under the U.S. Constitution to hold court proceedings in open court and holds judges accountable for only making a decision to supersede this right of the public under compelling and extraordinary circumstances. It also holds the court accountable for timely communication of such a decision. Not only does this proposed law make our legal system more transparent, it gives victims of sexual violence the opportunity to gain back their power. I urge the San Diego County Board of Supervisors to publicly endorse Senate Bill 248. Thank you.
Thank you. And if the final member of the group joins later, we can call on that person as an individual, but we'll move on to the individual speakers on this item at this time. The first one is 3012. 3012.
Good morning. Amy Hoffman, Deputy Public Defender of San Diego County. SB 248 will forever change a court's ability to protect the psychotherapist patient privilege and will further undermine the rehabilitative efforts of sex offender treatment. My name is Amy Hoffman, and I'm the supervising attorney of the San Diego Public Defender's Sexually Violent Predator Unit. I have handled multiple conditional release hearings that focus on evidence and testimony of sex offender treatment received at Coalinga State Hospital. With the support of our public defender, Randy Mize, I ask you to vote no on SB 248. Conditional release hearings occur after lengthy criminal sentence and after years, if not decades, of treatment at Coalinga State Hospital. Men who undergo treatment go through an intensive inpatient program structured on evidence-based practices. Therapy and assessments are conducted to ensure that core treatment principles are integrated into the patient's thought process and behaviors. Nowhere is there a greater need for the courts to protect the psychotherapist patient privilege. Without it, patients will be reluctant in making full disclosures upon which diagnosis and treatment depend. Treatment not only focuses on the offenses they committed, but also requires a deep look at their own victimization and trauma. Imagine being in a therapy session and disclosing the most shameful, hurtful thing that was ever done to you, and then have that publicized to the community. These proceedings present unique challenges, and the court does not ignore victims' rights in making these decisions. We all understand that there is fear and apprehension when considering release of sexually violent offenders. However, not one of these men who have been granted conditional release in San Diego County has reoffended. The conditional release program has around-the-clock supervision, including 24-hour GPS, individual and group treatment, drug and alcohol testing, as well as polygraph examination. SB 248 does nothing to increase public safety. Instead, it violates professional and medical standards related to mental health treatment. The Constitution affords patients protection of treatment confidentiality under federal and state law. Prosecutors already have the ability to access these records. No public good is served by further opening these records.
Thank you.
The more the legislature chips away at the privacy of patients, as SB 248 proposes, the greater the challenge our justice system is in delivering effective treatment to civilly committed patients.
Thank you.
Thank
Your time
you.
is up. Thank you.
Our next speaker is 3586. 3586.
Good morning. I'm Margot George. I'm speaking today on behalf of the California Public Defenders Association, CPDA, to oppose SB 248 and to support the San Diego Public Defender's Office. CPDA is a statewide organization of 4,000 public defenders, private defense counsel, and investigators. First, I just want to say that courts are frequently closed in certain kinds of hearings. They are routinely and almost always closed in juvenile matters. They're closed in LPS proceedings, which also deal with mental health. You know, you may have heard of them as 5150 holds. So closing SVP proceedings is not a deviation from the norm. SB 248 is bad public policy because it seeks to undermine the traditional role of the judiciary to determine when it is appropriate and under what circumstances to close courtrooms to the public. Judges do that every day throughout the state of California and across the country. They have experience making those decisions, and they weigh the competing interests of the press and the public's, including the victims' right to transparency in open courts versus the privacy interests of the parties. Currently, judges decide on a case-by-case basis whether or not to open an SVP hearing or whether to close an SVP hearing. SB 248 would unfairly weight the scale against the privacy rights of SVP patients. SVP patients are civil committees who have been committed to a state hospital due to mental illness. They are prisoners. They are not prisoners, but patients who are undergoing treatment for their mental illness.
Thank you, ma'am. Your time is up.
Thank you very much for your attention and ask you to oppose this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 0933. 0933. Zero 0933, please press *6 to unmute yourself.
Hi, my name's Karen Kennedy. I belong to Your Voice Has Power San Diego. Thank you for taking my phone call. I am for SB 248. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next, we have a number of additional speakers who may have called in to speak on item 2, which is support for Senate Bill 248. So if I call your number and you'd like to address the board on item number 2, please state your name and then you'll have 2 minutes to address the board. So our first caller on this list is 8058. 8058. If not, we'll move on to 8166. 8166. Oh.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm here, but I'm calling in for the next item.
Okay. If you could call back when item 3 is introduced, we'll call on you at that time.
Okay, thank you.
8166.
Hi, this is Christy Haskala, and I'm calling to support SB 248. I am a victim advocate that works with victims of sexual violence every day. Sexual violent predators rob victims of their sense of security and control, and closing the courts re-victimizes these victims. In my personal and professional experience, many victims want to be present to witness court proceedings and deserve to be notified. I have witnessed the pain and suffering of Mary and Cynthia not allowing to attend court proceedings. I am in awe of their advocacy to push for change. I'm also a mom whose daughter was molested by her teacher in San Diego County, who pled guilty to molesting 3 students. You may not label him a violent sexual predator, but we do, and we can address that another time. We were not notified of his parole hearing or his release from prison after only serving half his sentence, so you can imagine the horror when my daughter ran into him in the parking lot of the grocery store when she thought he was in prison. The public defender mentioned on behalf of sexual violent predators. Imagine having the worst thing that ever happened to you be made public. Well, that is exactly what happens to the victims who cooperate with the criminal justice system in order to protect the public from violent sexual predators. I support victims' rights, and this bill, SB 248. Thank you, board, and thank you, Summer Steffen, and thank you, Mary and Cynthia.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 8358. 8358.
As a reminder, any members of the public that have dialed in, please, if you do not wish to speak on this item, please hang up and call back when the board begins discussion of the next item.
So if not, then our next speaker is 5657. 5657. Again, this is on item number 2.
Hello, my name is Brittany Barsati, and I'm General Counsel for the California News Publishers Association, calling in support of SB 248. As mentioned, this bill is important for transparency, and I just would like to make clear that this does not impose any onerous restrictions that would hurt those being heard. It simply codifies the rules of court as they exist and requires that courts, when closing these sexually violent predator proceedings, follow the rules of courts and long established rules that the Supreme Court of California and the United States have upheld. Simply, they must narrowly tailor that any closure and must make a finding on the record that the closure is necessary. So again, this doesn't change the standards. It simply codifies the rules of court, which have already long been upheld. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 4761. 4761.
Yes, my name is Albert Medina, and I support Bill SB 248. As far as I'm concerned, those sex predators, they've lost their rights as far as privacy. You know, they left a lot of victims behind, and they should not have the rights of a private citizen that abides the law. Thank you very much. As I say, I support SB 248.
Thank you. And this is the final call for 8358. 8358. If you'd like to address the board on item 2, please press *6 to unmute your phone now. And if not, that concludes public testimony on this item. Chair Fletcher.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who called in on this item. Let me ask Supervisor Anderson if you'd like to make a motion on this item. You need to unmute, Supervisor.
Thank you very much. Yes, I would like to make that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Supervisor Anderson to approve recommendation 1 and agenda item 2. Is there a second to that motion?
Second, Desmond.
Second by Supervisor Desmond. Let me ask my colleagues if there's any comments or questions on this item.
I'll make a quick comment. I just want to put out there that this bill is, I understand where it's coming from. I think it's well intended and certainly, a significant, really important, but it is redundant, as judges already have the discretion to open proceedings based on a full assessment of the legal situation. And I think it's important for our judges to have judicial discretion and the ability to make this decision and have it, instead of having it forced upon them by politicians like us through a top-down, one-size-fits-all approach. I also would like to note it is so important that we maintain the flexibility for the right to privacy, and particularly as it relates to the treatment options that we're pursuing to try to reintegrate people into our communities. And so I'm very concerned that this bill would really have a counterproductive impact and do more harm than good. So I felt that is something that needs to be acknowledged, that these are very complex issues.
Thank you. Any other colleagues have any comments on this item?
Yes, Chair Fletcher. You know, I as a public health care advocate with about 20 years of experience as an executive at Planned Parenthood and an advocate that's been fighting for women's rights and an individual's right to privacy, I will say, you know, and as a matter of fact, I was somebody that as a trustee at Southwestern College, I led initiatives and ensured that we allocated resources to protect survivors of sexual assault and predators. I want to share that I'm not taking this vote lightly, and although I appreciate the intention behind the law when reviewing SB 248, I'm really concerned about the precedent that is created as it relates to individuals' right to privacy. And so at this time, right, I will not be able to support this. I really do believe that judges need to continue to have the conditional release of individuals and the, you know, I really thought about it a lot about this, and this is a sensitive issue, and I at this time I just believe that the proposed law will strip away a judge's ability to use their discretion in determining whether to keep a hearing closed or public, and it will disclose every detail a patient has told their service provider and counselor, and so for that reason I will be voting no.
Thank you, Vice Chair Vargas. We have a motion by Supervisor Anderson, a second by Supervisor Desmond to approve agenda item 2. Seeing no other comments, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
No.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, no.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, no.
That motion fails with Supervisor Anderson and Supervisor Desmond voting aye, all other supervisors being present and voting no.
We're going to briefly skip agenda item 3 and move to agenda item 6, our COVID update. Once we get through 6, we will return to order and pick up agenda item 3. Agenda item 6 is our regular COVID update. I will turn it first to staff presentation, then we will hear public speakers and then come back to board deliberation.
Before the staff presentation begins, any members of the public that requested to speak on this item, please dial into the conference line now using the instructions that were provided to you. You will be muted until it is your turn to speak. Additionally, any callers who do not wish to speak on this item, please hang up and call back when the board begins discussion of the next item. Thank you.
Chair Fletcher, members of the board, today's presentation will feature Dr. Wilma Wooten, who will provide a public health update as well as an additional information on the county's status on the state's tiered system. We'll then be joined by Nick Mascione, our agency director and head of T3, for an update on the vaccination efforts underway throughout the county. Additionally, Vince Nicoletti will provide an update on compliance efforts throughout the county, and Andy Pease, our Incident Command Finance Chief, will provide an update on funding sources. Finally, David Estrella, Director of Housing and Community Development Services, will be calling in to provide an update on the Emergency Rental Assistance Program. Without further ado, I'll welcome Dr. Wooten.
Thank you, Don. Good morning, Chair Fletcher and members of the board. The current epi curve shown on this slide shows COVID-19 cases by onset of illness and provides a historical review of cases to date. Since the regional stay-at-home order was lifted on January 25th, the number of cases by onset of illness has continuously declined. In the past 2 days, daily case counts have been below 300. For sure, we know that more cases will be reported during the last 2 weeks of February, as this is the incubation period for this disease, but numbers to date are encouraging. In another view, for the past 2 months, from January 1st through February 28th, daily case counts have gradually decreased. Case counts have continued in the right direction from 4,000 in the beginning of January to below 3,000 by mid-January, to 1,500 and below from late January to early February, to below 1,000 cases since February 11th, and the mid-200 cases in the past 2 days. We continue again to be confident to see an ongoing downward trend. Since the last presentation to your board on February 9th, an additional 13,363 laboratory-confirmed cases have been reported, for a total of 260,625 positive COVID-19 cases. These numbers are as of 11:59 Sunday, February 28th. This table provides a summary of cumulative cases with a breakdown by age, gender, hospitalization, ICU admissions, and deaths. The age range of all cases is from 0 to now 108 years of age, with a median age of about 36 years of age. The 20 to 49-year-old age group continues to comprise 54% of all cases. Gender remains unchanged, about 52% are female and 48% are male. Hospitalizations make up 5% of all cases. Thankfully, hospitalizations are decreasing, as you will see shortly. Almost 1,600 of those hospitalized have been admitted to the ICU. Also decreasing, this number is approximately 0.6% of the total number of cases and 11% of the total number of those hospitalized. The total number of cases also includes 3,303 deaths, or 1.3% of all cases. The median age of those who have unfortunately died is 78 years, and the age range is 10 to 106 years of age. All of our COVID-19 data can be found on our county website, www.coronavirus-sd.com. Now, we haven't shown this slide in recent months, but I just wanted to catch you up on the triggers dashboard, which monitors data and specifically 13 metrics across 3 categories: epidemiology or surveillance, healthcare or hospital capacity, and public health or response. 2 of the 13 triggers on this dashboard have exceeded their threshold, and that includes case rates, the case rate, and our community outbreaks, but again, both are declining. As you can see, triggers 11, which is case investigation, and trigger number 12, which is contact tracing, are now in the green and exceeding their trigger threshold of 70% each, and well above the 90% threshold for the general metric in these categories of case investigation and contact tracing. So with the regional stay-at-home order lifted, the state is back reopening on the blueprint for a safer economy framework. However, there may be news with modification of this coming out later this week. The state now has gone from 54 to 47 counties in the purple tier, 9 in the red tier, and 2 in the orange tier, with no county meeting the criteria for the yellow tier. San Diego County case rate and testing positivity have been decreasing each week, and as we wait for, again, the state to post this week's calculated metrics, we are now showing metrics that are based on calculations conducted by our county staff. The unadjusted case rate for February 14th through February 20th, after a 7-day lag, is 11.3 per 100,000 population, with the adjusted case rate at 10.8, which is still in the purple tier. The testing positivity, however, is 4.2%, which is the orange tier or tier 3. And staff members have also calculated the health equity positivity metric to be 6%, characteristic of the red tier or tier 2. Since the last presentation to your board, the state has revised some reopening guidance related to case rates for schools and youth sports. For schools that have never reopened, K through 6 can now reopen once the county's case rate is 25 and lower, which is the case currently. This occurred in San Diego County on February 16th. Schools that serve 7th through 12th grades can reopen once a county moves into the red tier. So we still have a bit of ways to go there. Regarding youth sports, counties in the purple tier can open high contact to youth sports once its case rate is 14 or lower, per the modified blueprint framework. As seen on this slide, we project San Diego's adjusted case rate to be 10.8 per 100,000 population, which is below the 14 per 100,000 population case rate requirement, allowing high contact sports to reopen indefinitely. Finally, we know that more state changes to the blueprint framework will be coming, and we will continue to keep your board and the public informed. In this next slide, it shows the trends of the unadjusted and the adjusted case rates over time. Note that the threshold for the case rate to be in the purple tier is still 7.1 or higher per 100,000 population. Given the current adjusted case rate is approximately 10.8, San Diego County is getting closer to reach the threshold to be in the red tier, which is 7 or less per 100,000 population. Now, in addition to the positive news about COVID-19 cases declining, there is also the looming news of the B117 or the UK variant that is a potential public health threat. As of February 28th, San Diego County has reported 197 confirmed cases, which is 59 more cases than reported to your board 3 weeks ago. Of the total cases, there have been 1 death, which is unchanged, and 3 hospitalizations, which includes 1 additional hospitalization since the last report to your board. The median age is 5 years. The age range is 0 to 93 years of age. 49% are female and 51% are male, and no cases of the South African variant have been identified locally to date. So going to the next slide, in closing, as cases are declining and more people are being vaccinated, we are very optimistic about the future. However, we cannot let our guards down. As we wait for the arrival of the new Johnson & Johnson vaccine and more Pfizer and Moderna vaccines, all San Diegans are urged to continue to follow all prescribed health precautions. In alignment with the CDC and the state, please wash your hands, watch your distance, and wear your mask. If you are sick, isolate at home and get tested. And when it is your turn to receive the COVID-19 various vaccines that are available, get vaccinated. Thank you for your continued vigilance in helping all San Diegans be COVID safe. Now please welcome Agency Director Nick Mascione.
Thank you, Dr. Wooten. And I'd like to start with a special recognition of our County Incident Command and County team who's given everything they got in protecting our public's health against COVID-19. They've been doing this every single day now for over an entire year. And in that regard, in the past 10 months, our county regions built a T3 testing ecosystem so impactful that we're now reaching almost about 4 million tests. And it's in that same innovation and drive that we've applied to vaccinations, purposefully creating an ecosystem with multiple vaccination locations and delivery systems with an emphasis in ensuring that we cover our entire county and do so by reaching our most vulnerable. Nearly 3 months now into our COVID-19 vaccination efforts, we remain steadfast in our drive to vaccinate 70% of San Diego County residents aged 16 and older by July 1st or sooner. This equates to approximately 1.8 million San Diegans, and doing so will only be possible with the collective effort of our entire vaccination ecosystem and partners. And that includes not only our county-hosted efforts, such as our points of dispensing, or pods as we call them, or super stations and mobile vaccination efforts led by the county, but also partnerships with our hospitals, clinics, and cities. And in addition, we embrace and appreciate and value the vaccination efforts of the military, the Veterans Administration, and retail pharmacies across the region. Now, through it all, we steadfastly prioritize health equity. This includes ensuring that vaccination events that the county hosts or sponsors with our partners are overrepresented in those communities hit hardest by COVID-19. And as you now are very familiar with in this chart, the shaded regions of this map reflect census tracts that have the least health opportunities and are what we call the health equity quartile. Our vaccination sites are inside or directly adjacent to these areas. As expansive as our vaccination sites have been thus far, this map only shows, though, a portion of all the access points for San Diegans to get a vaccine. For instance, in this next slide, many other avenues to vaccinate are available in our region. One in particular I wanted to call out is retail pharmacies. You see, the federal government has begun rolling out the Federal Retail Pharmacy Partnership Program to provide direct allocations to retail pharmacies. Much like now, how do you go to your local pharmacy for a flu vaccine? You can now do that for a COVID-19 vaccine if you meet the current vaccination eligibility criteria as established by our public health officer. There are 130 pharmacies in San Diego County offering COVID-19 vaccinations. That's 130. Other providers for vaccine not included in this map include medical providers like Kaiser Permanente. These providers are required to provide vaccinations to their members, 620,000 to be exact, and have already begun the appointment process. Other non-county providers, such as our federally qualified health centers or medical groups, and again, as I mentioned, the military and the VA, and the tribal health programs and urban Indian organizations. Now, reflecting back on this past month, we've continued to build out our regional capacity, even with the unstable vaccine supply. And as you can see in this chart, our county team, in partnership with our community partners, did just that. We now have 12 county-hosted vaccine sites, 6 vaccination superstations, and 5 hospital-county partnership events, including a new partnership with Alvarado Hospital. I say it, Hospital Without Walls. They are doing a mobile rotating vaccination events throughout East County. We also have Operation Collaboration, a partnership between County Fire and numerous local fire agencies that have joined together to organize rotating regional vaccine events with the focus on our rural communities. Operation Collaboration has recently been vaccinating at 3 locations, but those sites change on a week-to-week basis to canvass the broader rural community. And this, again, is in addition to our other mobile vaccination efforts countywide. We've also partnered in cities. For example, the city of San Diego through the San Diego Fire and Rescue for a regular vaccination site at Balboa Park. And lastly, I already mentioned the multiple partners involved in our many other mobile vaccination teams to reach some of our most vulnerable residents. This includes working with 211 to develop a list of homebound individuals who will require the vaccinator travel to their residence. And while our daily vaccination capacity has steadily increased, our greatest challenge continues to be the supply of vaccine. You see, currently, we only have been vaccinating at about 42% of our total capacity of 33,000 vaccinations a day. However, as Dr. Wooten pointed out, with the recent approval of the single-dose Johnson & Johnson vaccination, we're optimistic that we'll see our supplies increase over the next weeks with an addition of the Pfizer and Moderna vaccine. Now, one of our top priorities has been to protect our most vulnerable adults. And we have made significant achievements in this county in that effort. And I'm proud of it. We all are. Our county is home to about 1,300 long-term care facilities and skilled nursing facilities. Each were primarily provided vaccinations through the Federal Pharmacy Partnership Program with CVS and Walgreens. But for those that are not part of the program, our mobile outreach teams were deployed through Operation Collaboration and partnerships with other city fire agencies. We now have 100% of our skilled nursing facilities vaccinated. That's 100%. And 93% of our long-term care facilities have received at least a first dose, and 85% of our long-term care facilities have received both doses. Additionally, those most at risk of dying from COVID-19, namely our county residents 65 and older, have received at least 60% of that population has received at least their first dose to date. That is a significant accomplishment. And we're still vaccinating this age group throughout all of our vaccination sites. Now, protecting the vulnerable and disproportionately affected also means connecting the unconnected to vaccinations. 211 San Diego continues to be a major support in connecting the 65 and older with scheduling appointments over the phone. And with health equity as our guiding principle, our efforts have been focused on opening vaccination locations in South Region to start. However, we didn't stop there. Outreach and education are a driving force in helping eligible groups who may be hesitant to get their access to their vaccination appointment. Let me give you a recent example of how we've increased access in a meaningful way. Securing an appointment has been a challenge. We've been hearing from many, especially those with language or technology barriers. So this past weekend, we piloted a no appointment site in South Bay to remove the barrier of having to go online and make an appointment, having served over 750 San Diegans in this past weekend. And we restricted those appointment sites to those living in those surrounding zip codes to ensure that the local community most adversely impacted by the pandemic was the ones that were getting the vaccinations. We call this newly launched program Project SAVE, and it stands for Scheduling Assistance for Vaccine Equity. It's also a pilot program using promotoras and community health workers to support eligible, again, higher risk individuals access to COVID-19 vaccination appointments in their community. In this program, the promotoras that are coming from community-based organizations, grassroots organizations, have exclusive access to really blocked appointments at several of our South Region vaccination locations. To make these appointments, the promotoras go into their communities and conduct outreach at grocery stores, faith-based organizations, food distributions, housing complexes, and many others. And as we pilot these no appointment sites, the promotoras are spreading the word to the community about the importance of getting vaccinated and providing support immediately on site. We're proud of this innovation and creativity with our community partners of these pilot programs, and we look forward to assessing how we will be rolling them out region-wide as integral parts of our county vaccination strategy. Now, our strategy of health equity and high volume that I just covered is what we will be recommending to the state's new, what they call third-party administrator, Blue Shield of California. You see, Blue Shield is acting now as an agent of the state to ensure the build-out of the vaccine network that increases the rate of allocation for doses is done in an equitable and efficient way. In other words, they're trying to follow the San Diego model of what they're trying to do statewide. This transition began yesterday, March 1st, and it will take place in 3 phases, as you can see on the screen. The first phase of the transition involves a 3-week process where Blue Shield will begin implementing state-approved vaccination allocations to counties and providers. During the second phase, the allocation will begin to follow the state's equity and priority directives. This will apply to all providers, including us, the county, as a local health jurisdiction, who will be required to follow the state's prioritization guidelines, be it age, sectors, health conditions, so forth. In the third phase of this transition, beginning March 15th, the Blue Shield will manage all the providers in the network and assume responsibility for implementing the state-approved allocation and all of the vaccine doses provided to California. This includes, again, our county pods. We're looking forward to meeting and working with Blue Shield this week, actually, later this week, to learn more about this transition and ensuring that they build upon the state's highest performing county as we've established to date. In the meantime, we are moving forward with the rollout of additional vaccination prioritizations. As part of this weekend, on February 27th, the eligible groups that have been expanded include the emergency sector, services sector, the education and child care, and the food and agricultural sector. And on March 15th, we anticipate opening the eligibility to individuals ages 16 to 64 with qualifying underlying health conditions. And if we've just added these other groups, it's worth noting that we've made significant strides in our ability to protect the most vulnerable. While we still have much further to go, it's exciting to hit the milestone of over 1 million doses of vaccine received in our region, which, by the way, does not include what's been provided to the military and the veterans or tribal entities. So we know it's well over 1 million. Currently, approximately 929,000 doses have been administered, including 4,788 that are in the process of being entered in our San Diego immunization registry. And so in my last slide, with those nearly 1 million doses, that's 1 in 5 eligible San Diegans that received at least their first dose. And that's 1 in 10 fully vaccinated. You see, we still have a ways to go, but we're showing forward progress. And this is an indication that there is light at the end of this pandemic tunnel. So we're confident that with ample supply of vaccine, we'll reach our goal of 70% or better than July 1st. And with that, I'd like to now turn it over to Vince Nicoletti, who will discuss the engagement with the Biz Committee.
On August 4th, the county established the Safe Reopening Compliance Team to serve as the regional lead for complaints regarding possible violations of the public health order. To date, the team has received over 22,000 complaints, working with cities across the region to address them. The team includes a call center that's staffed 24/7, for which complaints are anonymous, and we respond to emails as well. We've trained team members on approach with the intent of helping businesses or entities navigate the health order to come into compliance. This next chart shows the average daily complaints each week since the Safe Reopening Compliance Team was established. Each bar represents the average number of daily complaints for each day that week. The average daily complaints has ranged from 40 to 50 in the first few months. Following our move into the purple tier restrictions in November, daily complaints increased significantly, averaging 200 to 300 a day. And since the California lifted the stay-at-home order on January 25th, complaints have decreased back down to just over 50 a day. Since our last board update, compliance teams have reached out to those businesses that are now allowed to operate since the stay-at-home order was lifted. We've explained changes of lifting the stay-at-home order, including what changes businesses could make to be in compliance, such as restaurants shifting to outdoor dining. We've conducted follow-up inspections for locations that previously received cease and desist orders to confirm they're now in compliance. For businesses and entities are now in compliance, we're removing their names from our website so they're no longer listed with active cease and desist orders. For those that remain in violation, we continue the escalated enforcement process with the threaded sheriff teams. Based on recent changes to the requirements for youth sports and places of worship, we've paused enforcement actions for those sectors pending any future changes. As the state modifies requirements, such as relaxing certain areas, we modify compliance efforts to align with the state changes. This completes the update on compliance, and next, Andy Pease will speak to finance.
Thanks, Vince. Good morning. The county's weekly spend rate for our efforts is estimated at just under $12 million. Now, we are noticing some interesting trends in our costs, or at least interesting to me, and the largest is in T3, and particularly testing. At our last update, we estimated we were spending about $6.8 million a week in T3. But with the reduction in testing that we are seeing across the county, these costs have dropped by almost $2 million a week. And this is what we are and have been anticipating. As positive cases go down and vaccination efforts go up, we expect the testing, tracing, and treatment costs to decrease. Likewise, we are beginning to see a decline in the costs for the COVID income stipend program. This program provides a $1,000 stipend for employed individuals who test positive but have no sick leave or other benefits. At the last update, we were estimating spending about $1.2 million a week, and now it's about $1.1 million, and although a modest decline, it appears it's continuing to trend down, which makes sense as it has a strong correlation to our positive cases in the region. The spending estimates in the other areas remain about the same. I will note that we're now showing the full cost of the Great Plates Delivered program at $1.8 million, as it is now 100% funded by FEMA. In the past, we were only showing just the county cost impact, which was about $100,000 a week. And the Biden administration recently expanded the use of FEMA to 100% for this program. So, out of the $11.9 million we are spending weekly, $1.8 million clearly funded with FEMA, and for the rest, we are anticipating potentially another $880 million in federal and state stimulus funding. Under H.R. 133, the federal stimulus bill passed in December, the state of California received $1.7 billion for COVID-enhancing detection expansion funding, and that is to strengthen our public health infrastructure so we can address our current COVID pandemic as well as future pandemics. This funding can be used for, among other things, lab enhancements, testing, tracing, containment, mitigation. The state is allocating $123.8 million to the County of San Diego. We have yet to receive official guidelines for its use. However, we expect to learn more later this week. And these funds are for costs incurred over the next 2 years. We've been allocated approximately $107 million of federal and state funding also through HR 133 for rental assistance. The $107 million is about $5 million higher than what we originally anticipated, so that is good news. And in just a moment, David Estrella will be providing you an update. And of course, under the current $1.9 trillion federal stimulus bill, if passed as is, the County of San Diego is estimated to receive $652.5 million of emergency relief funds to cover our COVID response efforts and impacts. And we anticipate this bill could pass and be signed into law sometime later this March. And that is why, for recommendation 4 in today's item, it's to direct the CAO to return to the board with a framework in the use of these stimulus funds toward our COVID-19 response efforts and impacts, including options toward economic and community investments at the next available board meeting after a stimulus package is passed. With the anticipated timing of the bill and then the publishing of the guidelines, we think the earliest we'd present the framework is April 6th, but as things develop at the federal level, we'll adjust the return date accordingly. In the development of the framework, we'll consider input from board members, and when we do return, we'll also include recommendations for the establishment of the needed appropriations for the current year and an estimate of the appropriations needed for the upcoming budget year, which would be handled through the normal budget process. And with that, I'll now turn it over to David Estrella.
Good morning, confirming that you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Good morning. At the January 26, 2021 meeting, the Board of Supervisors directed the Chief Administrative Officer to report back to the board on March 2nd with a comprehensive assessment of the need for rental assistance countywide, including access to assistance for undocumented residents. According to the 2019 census data, there are a total of 538,000 renter households in the region, of which 37,000 are located in the city of Chula Vista and 233,000 in the city of San Diego. This means that there are 268,000 renter households in the 16 cities and unincorporated areas that fall in the county's Emergency Rental Assistance Program, or ERAP, service area jurisdiction. Based on the ERAP funding requirements, assistance is targeted to low-income households whose income is at or below 80% of the federally defined area median income. This table shows a breakdown of estimated units by income category: 30% AMI, 50% AMI, and 80% AMI. As you can see in this slide, there are approximately 347,000 low-income renter households in the region, 173,000 of which are in the county's ERAP service area. According to a recent nationwide study from Moody's Analytics, it is estimated that 20% of renting households in California are behind on their rent. The study further states that the renter, on average, will owe approximately $5,600. Given San Diego County's expensive housing market, we can anticipate higher delinquency amounts for the San Diego region. Applying the 20% assumption to the 347,000 eligible low-income households, we estimate the need for emergency rental assistance in the entire region as approximately 69,400 households. Excluding the cities of San Diego and city of Chula Vista, the estimated need is 34,600 households. Assuming a regional monthly rent of $2,375, a rough estimate of monthly utility cost of $150, and a rough estimate that households are on average 6 months behind on rent, the regional need could be just over $1 billion in rental and utility assistance. The emergency rental assistance programs administered by the county from August 2020 to February 2021 using CARES Act funding did not require proof of citizenship or residential status as a criteria for eligibility. The current program design for new federal and state funding follows suit in not requiring that information. According to a 2018 report from the Migration Policy Institute, the unauthorized immigrant population in San Diego County is estimated at 170,000 residents, or roughly 5% of the overall population of the region, which is 3.3 million. Applying the 5% of overall population ratio to our previous estimates of need across the region, the rental assistance need in the entire region of San Diego County for undocumented residents is estimated to be 3,500, but could be up to 8,750, given that the poverty rate in the undocumented population is 2.5 times larger than the rest of the population. If we exclude the cities of San Diego and Chula Vista, the estimated need is between 1,750 and 4,375 households. I'll now provide an update on the county's emergency rental assistance program. The program will help eligible renter households who have been financially impacted by the COVID-19 pandemic through payment assistance for rent and utilities. To be eligible, current household income must be at or below 80% of the federally defined area median income. This chart shows maximum annual income levels based on household size. The county's program will serve individuals and families countywide, except for those who live in the cities of San Diego and the city of Chula Vista, as those cities receive separate allocations to operate their own COVID-19 emergency rental assistance programs. Residents in those cities and residents that are unsure of which program serves their area are encouraged to visit erapsandiego.org. Once again, erapsandiego.org. This regional landing page provides information about all 3 programs, and residents can type in their address or locate their area on an interactive map to determine which programs they can apply to. The county will first prioritize applications for households earning at or below 50% area median income, or that have been unemployed for 90 or more days prior to the application. Of those households that meet the mandated preferences, the county will further prioritize applications according to the Health Equity Index and single-parent household local priorities. Regarding the amount provided per award, any currently outstanding rental arrears owed between April 2020 and March 2021 can be covered by the program. Landlords that agree to participate can receive 80% of the arrears owed if they agree to forgive the remaining 20% of the rental debt. If a landlord decides not to participate, the tenant can apply for 25% of the arrears directly to be used towards rent payments. Although applicants can apply for both past due rent and current or future rent, the program will focus on addressing rent and utility arrears for applicant program-wide. And if funding permits, prospective rent payments may be made. The county's emergency rental assistance program began taking applications today, March 2nd. The application period will be open for at least 3 weeks and will be extended as necessary. The county is using the education and outreach network that is being used to support the COVID response in various sectors within the community to spread the word about the program. We are also working closely with the county's community health worker communication and outreach services, which are contracted partners that do culturally and linguistically appropriate COVID outreach to address the inequities in pandemic impact and include hard-to-reach communities. The county has issued a press release and social media posts with program information. Program flyers have been translated into Spanish, Arabic, Tagalog, Mandarin, and Vietnamese, and have been sent to community partners throughout the region to distribute through local networks. For example, we've partnered with the Regional Task Force on the Homeless, Southern California Rental Housing Association, Legal Aid of San Diego, and San Diego Housing Federation to help spread the word. Both landlords and tenants can apply. If you've received assistance through a past rental or utility assistance program, you may still apply for outstanding rent or utilities that have not been covered by that other assistance. Any interested renters or landlords can visit sdhcd.org, sdhcd.org, for more information about the program and how to apply online. This concludes my portion of the update. I pass it over to Don. Thank you.
Thank you, David. In addition to receiving this update, we recommend your board take the following additional actions with respect to this item. First, ratify all actions taken in response to the local health emergency and local emergency, which shall include the agreement listed in Attachment A with Scripps Healthcare. This contract provides a foundation for Scripps to operate vaccine sites as similar to UCSD and SHARP contracts that have been called your board in prior letters. Second, ratify all actions by County Fire to enter into mutual aid agreements for vaccination services with fire agencies listed in Attachment B. Agencies listed in Attachment B are mutual aid agreements for city fire agencies that are part of Operation Collaboration. Operation Collaboration is an effort led by County and Cal Fire to coordinate vaccine events with approximately 20 other city and fire agencies. These agencies can provide paramedics, EMTs at locations identified by T3 as needing these resources, including superstations, smaller county pods, and other vaccination events as needed. Next, as Andy mentioned, direct the Chief Administrative Officer to return to the board with a framework for the use of the federal and state stimulus funds towards our COVID-19 pandemic response efforts and impacts on the next available board meeting after a stimulus package is passed. And finally, take all other actions necessary to address the COVID-19 pandemic emergency response. And subject to your questions, this concludes our presentation.
Thank you, and thank you to the staff. Look, there's a lot of encouraging news when it comes to COVID. We are seeing our cases at record lows, numbers in the 200s we have not seen for quite some time. We're pushing 1 million vaccines administered just in San Diego County alone. I think one of the most exciting things was the capacity and potential that we could be doing just in our public network of vaccination sites, close to 1 million vaccines per month. And I know if that supply were available, we could certainly do more. We are seeing a progress in descending in tiers. I think we're going to see some encouraging news around the structure of the tiers, and I feel like we're in a direction where we will continue a phased and responsible and safe reopening. We've got efforts around schools. We see schools beginning to open up. I think we're all optimistic we can get fans back in the ballpark for opening day. We, of course, have to continue to drive the need to be responsible. COVID's still out there. We need folks to continue to wear masks and avoid high-risk indoor settings. We obviously are likely in the nature of COVID to go from a scarcity of vaccines to a surplus of vaccines, and that's why we're building out such an infrastructure. And at some point, we will get into some of those folks that are more reluctant to get it. But nonetheless, right now, we are headed in the right direction, and I think we have considerable positive energy on our side. So it is encouraging. We also have the availability of more funding coming in, both state funding coming in, federal funding coming in. We know all that would have been helpful last fall, but it's here now. And it can aid our recovery process as we seek to restore and renew and move forward. So I want to thank staff for the incredible update and all of the hard work over the course of the last year. We're not out of this yet. We've got to continue to be vigilant and continue to do the things that have made San Diego County a leader across the board in COVID. But I think that we all should take a moment to be encouraged by the progress we're making. Before we go to board members, let me ask the clerk if there are any requests for public comment, and then we'll come back and go to board member discussion.
Thank you, Chair Fletcher. Yes, there are 4 requests to speak on this item, and I'll also note for the record that we received 2 e-comments on this item. As a reminder for the callers, if you do not wish to speak on this item, please hang up and call back when the board begins discussion of the next item. We'll be calling speakers by the last 4 digits of the phone number. You'll hear a notification that your call has been unmuted. You will then need to press *6 to unmute your phone. Each caller will be asked to state their name for the audio record, and you will have 2 minutes to address the board. You'll hear the sound when your time is up, so please conclude your comments at that time. I'd remind the public speakers that they should mute their TV or live video stream before they begin speaking. Aaron, if you could please identify the first caller.
Thank you. Our first caller is 8688. 8688.
Hello, this is Catherine Rhodes. This COVID-19 response presentation is missing information on FEMA's 100% reimbursable hotel rooms through Project Room Key. Please direct your staff to maximize the amount of FEMA reimbursement and to fully occupy the existing 640 Project Room Key hotel rooms for high-risk homeless with underlying medical conditions. Please direct your CAO to come back to the board on Project Room Key specifically. This is free cash that can come into the area for hotel owners to put some people to work on a temporary basis until September 30th, 2021 for 7 months, and to, of course, help all these homeless people that very much need your leadership to force your staff to go for this money. And please also have your staff discuss if FEMA 100% reimbursement, totaling at least $25 million to date, has been applied for. And if not, when will grant funding be applied for? Last week, there were 588 people, or a 92% occupancy in the Project Room Key Hotel. This week, there's only 542, or 85% occupancy. There's 98 empty hotel rooms that could be to help people that are coming out of the hospital. And the number of occupied rooms and percentages are only going down to the county's policy team and your new policy of not allowing more people to enter the Project Room Key program. Instead, qualified high-risk homeless are put on the county's waiting list without telling them they'll never get in, even when there's empty secured hotel rooms available and unused. This is just cruel to get people's hopes up. There's at least 1,000 people on the waiting list, and you're not even telling them that, please help. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 7872. 7872.
Hello, good morning. My name is Allison Hartman. I would like to address a few very worrying issues as a citizen of San Diego with the Board of Supervisors regarding the handling of the COVID response. First, given that there is currently no state of emergency, why is the city still imposing any restrictions or limitations on any businesses or schools or health mandates for people such as masks and distancing? Next, according to California Code 8558, a state of emergency means that our emergency medical services are overwhelmed. They are not. They have not been for a long time. The likelihood that they will be in the future, now that the PCR cycle testing threshold has been lowered to an appropriate level, and also because of the vaccine initiative, is very low. Thus, all restrictions must be lifted today. If they are not lifted, each of you are complicit in fraud by intentionally misrepresenting the information about this local health emergency for monetary gain. That is, you are allowing this local health emergency to stand in order to get state and federal funds. This is fraud, according to Title 18, USC Section 1040, fraud in connection with major disaster or emergency benefits, which is a felony and carries a prison sentence. Next, you should be aware that Rady Children's Hospital has reported that 28 children a month are having suicidal thoughts and need emergency care. This is up from, on average, in previous years, prior to COVID, an average of 5 to 10 cases a month. Our kids are literally killing themselves by suicide from despair, and 0 kids in California have died of COVID. Additionally, the child abuse pediatric program at Rady Children's Hospital reported an 82% increase in child abuse cases. Tips toward the San Diego Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force nearly doubled to a whopping 5,885. You are failing our children.
Thank you.
We demand you to end this state of emergency. If not, charges will be brought. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is 4974. 4974. 4974. Please press star 6 to unmute yourself.
Can you hear me? Okay. Thank you very much. I just wanted to actually give kudos to Ruth Martin of Nora Vargas's staff for doing the outreach about making sure that I could get information and pass it on to other seniors about the vaccine being available or not available. As someone who doesn't have transportation and had made arrangements to get my second vaccine, which I'm super glad I did, it is really difficult when these changes are happening and there isn't a central place or a phone number, because I tried 5 or 6 of them to try to find out whether the vaccine would be available when I had my appointment. Of course, we understand appointments have to be canceled when there is no vaccine. But I don't know the answer to making sure that people can get that information if they don't have access to a computer. Even with the computer, I had someone go online and they were not able to determine whether the vaccine would be available in the location that I had the appointment. So I really do want to thank Ruth Martin in particular, and just want to bring that to the board if there's some solution for helping that communication to people that don't have the easy access. Thank you.
Thank you. And could you please state your name for the record?
Sorry, Michelle Krug. Thank you very much.
And that concludes public testimony on this item, Chair Fletcher.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I want to go to my board members for comment. I'll put a motion on the table to get our discussion kicked off to accept the 5 recommendations. I'd like to add a 6th recommendation in response to some of the concerns around what we're doing on hotels. And the 6th recommendation I would add would be to direct the Chief Administrative Officer to commission an independent review by regional experts and report back to the board within 90 days on the needs and services provided at public health hotels that provide shelter to COVID-19 patients and others. And as part of that report, include lessons learned and how the county can apply those lessons and best practices to address in the future issues surrounding the unsheltered. But let's start the discussion on that. Let me go first to Vice Chair Vargas.
I'll second the motion, Chair, sorry. But I did want to make a couple of comments. First and foremost, I wanted to thank county staff for the presentation and also for all their work that they've done to mitigate COVID-19, and specifically in our communities that have been hardest hit. Through their collaboration with my office, we've been able to launch these pilot programs, and we've been able to provide feedback to 211, and they're moving pretty fast, and I know that we're asking a lot, but I think that it really is paying off. And these pilot programs, I think particularly the ones that have reserved a portion of available COVID vaccination appointments for equitable distribution have really made a difference in the community. By making appointments and reservations with our promotoras in 65 and older, it really has had an impact. I will tell you that my staff has called all 22 senior homes locations in the district, and all of them have already been contacted to make sure that they get their vaccination. So I want to say thank you for that, because we're double and triple checking to make sure that people have access that they need. These are just one of many of the strategies that we've been advocating for, and to address the inequities. I did want to address Mr. Marchioni's comment about this past Saturday with the new tier opening up. Really has, although it's still, now we include educators, emergency service workers, law enforcement, food and agricultural workers, and that's about 500,000 people that are going to be eligible. And this is super exciting because we want to make sure more individuals have the opportunity to get the vaccine. But I do want to highlight something extremely important that I'm still concerned about, and I want to make sure that our communities and our public hears this, because under this new tier, a lot of people of color, which the data has shown are still disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, will still not be eligible for the vaccine just yet. And so I want to make sure that we note that, because if you look at the demographics for these new eligible groups, the data shows that 60% of educators, childcare population, and 59.5% of the emergency service workers population are still Caucasian. And so I want to make sure that we share that with you and we have this conversation on the dais, because just like with the healthcare worker population, there was a clear lack of representation from communities of color under these sectors. And so it's going to tip a little, pretty quickly, but I want to make sure that as individuals in these sectors get vaccinated, we're going to continue to see a large disparity among the number of people of color who are vaccinated. And so that said, I want to assure everyone that I'm committed to continue to strengthen the county's vaccination infrastructure and work on strategies and interventions that are going to make sure that our communities of color and vulnerable populations, not just in District 1, but throughout the county, have access to the vaccine when it's their turn. So I do want to highlight that we did have the opportunity to meet with school board members in my office in the district and superintendents. And as a result, we heard loud and clear from them that because they were operating through distance learning, they would have had to wait for their vaccine. And in talking to Dr. Wooden and the advisory committee, I am grateful for the recommendations that school vaccination effort with those schools in the 4th quartile based on the healthy places, regardless of whether the schools are currently open or not, have now access to the vaccines. And that's going to make a direct impact and a big difference in the communities that have been highly impacted, because we have to find new mechanisms to be able to ensure that all of our educators and our youth are safely returned to the classroom. And then last but not least, I want to just emphasize that one of my top priorities as supervisor is really to mitigate COVID-19 and economic recovery. And I'm just wanted to share publicly that I was really proud to announce last week that we launched the South Bay Equity and Economic Recovery Task Force alongside Assemblymember Lorena Gonzalez and other key leaders from the region. Our South Bay communities have been disproportionately impacted by the pandemic, and it's going to have to take a collaborative, equitable approach to address these disparities that has been created. And, emphasizing that government can't do this alone. The intent of this task force is really to work together, roll up our sleeves, and view it as a unified voice for the region to advocate for equity and help create a holistic roadmap to ensure all communities are healthier and stronger. And so the task force is actually composed of a number of individuals, including elected officials, representatives from business communities, schools, organized labor, binational partners, our nonprofit organizations that are doing the work on the ground. And so I understand that in anticipation of receiving future federal and state funding, one of the actions that is requested today is to direct the CAO to return with a framework with priorities for this funding. And I understand that in the past, funding has been utilized for an array of things, such as to assist small businesses, childcare vouchers, rental assistance, T3 efforts. We did a study over the summer that when we released it, the top priorities for our communities that were directly impacted, and not just in District 1, it was all of the county of, the communities that were disproportionately impacted. People had issues, making sure that they access to food, right, 57%, rent or mortgage assistance, 46%, utility assistance was 30%, and unemployment assistance was 27%. And this is a study that we did through SANDAG and all of the nonprofit organizations that were on the ground. And so I can assure you that, and we did it over the summer, so I think the data was released, in September, October. And my guess is that the priorities continue to be on the top of the list for our communities. And so what I've seen and heard from the communities and what I would like to see if we can explore is assistance for funeral expenses. As we know, funeral services are costly and many families are struggling to pay for these services. I would like to explore the possibility of a partnership to be able to provide assistance for funeral arrangements for families that have lost a loved one from COVID-19. Mental health services for our youth. Our youth have experienced a lot of trauma in the past year as a result of the pandemic, and it's critical that mental health services are offered. In addition to that, care for COVID-19 long haulers. I have heard from many folks in my community specifically, really thinking about exploring the model that UC Davis Health created to bring counsel and care to patients with continuing effects, additional PPE for our social workers and folks on the ground, transportation vouchers for youth and seniors. And I understand that MTS has made some changes, but I think while basic needs, including food, shelter, and utilities have been outlined in the past as top priorities, the truth is that there is not one universal need by every family in the county. And so therefore, even though I have laid out some priorities already, I really believe that providing direct monetary assistance to families in need might be the best approach. And doing so will allow families to obtain those things that will best meet the immediate basic needs of their families, and doing it with dignity and respect, which I think is one of the biggest issues that a lot of our communities face who are, in dire need. I'm concerned that well-intentioned programs that restrict the use of the funding in a certain way might be missing other basic needs that families need assistance with. So ultimately, however, I think that to create this framework, we need to see feedback from community leaders and constituents on what will have the greatest positive impact to address families' basic needs. So I would like to direct the CAO and ask my colleagues to see if we could conduct a workshop with community members to receive input on future funding and its use for COVID-19 mitigation and recovery. I ran, and many of us have run on the premise that we want to be transparent and we want to ensure that community engagement and input is part of every one of our decision-making process. And I think this is one way that we can do that. So thank you again for your continued work. And I look forward to being your partner in this process as we ensure that our families and our communities get back to work and into our schools and to our daily routines. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Vargas. Let me just quickly ask the CAO on the workshop item. I think that's a good approach as we develop a kind of framework for how we might apply those funds. Perhaps it's something could be made available to each of the offices if they'd like to have a workshop in their district, most likely virtual, but still to get input. But let me ask our CAO if she has a preferred way to best facilitate that.
Thank you, Chair. We will certainly figure it out, and we will do just that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I don't think we need to change. I think we will work. We don't need to change the recommendation, but I think the point is well taken, and we will figure out how to make that available to each of the offices. Does that work, Supervisor Vargas?
Yes, Chair. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Who's next? Supervisor Desmond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I had a few questions and then just a couple of comments, but the first question is basically for Nick and our testing staff. My office, we've been getting some calls from people who are non-ambulatory who want to get the vaccination. So I had a doctor call who says he goes house to house to a lot of homebound patients, and he has a clientele of about 500 patients. He potentially estimates, and I don't know how good this number is, but about 15,000 people in the county that are homebound, and many of them 65 and older. And the frustration of getting them the vaccination. So I know we're trying to get as many people as vaccinated as possible, and in the best places, at some of these super stations where people have to go to. Is there any work, I guess, in the plans to get to people who are non-ambulatory to get them the vaccination?
Supervisor Desmond, thank you for that question. The answer is yes. We established a program with 211, first to identify folks who have this need. There's about, currently, you mentioned a bigger number, but the ones that we have listed that have identified need, about 500. We've been working with our aging and independent services and really now using a couple of modalities. One, our CAL FIRE kind of mobilization teams to get to those homes. For instance, we started one effort of going to a senior complex where we identified, Vice Chair Vargas mentioned, canvassing all the senior complexes. We identified one where we had a number of people that were not ambulatory. So we went to that site to vaccinate. So we are doing those efforts of trying to not just have people come to our vaccination sites, but how we're trying to canvass that. Obviously, it's always important to be noted that we encourage first the caregiver, because every of these folks, homebound individuals, have some type of caregiver that they're getting vaccinated. They were part of the phase 1A. And then we're trying to work with the caregivers as well to make coordinated efforts. In terms of the individual provider, I think you mentioned, they have to be an approved provider of the state to be a vaccinator. But we have onboarded, for example, a small nonprofit organization that has been doing a small number of vaccinations in addition to our mobile teams. So we're trying to onboard our partners, Alvarado Hospital, we're working with, for example, interested in doing mobile, as well as Sharp Healthcare. So we are onboarding more providers to do that, because we know there's a fair number of San Diegans that we're going to have to get to help them get vaccinated.
Well, and these are individual households. I understand we're doing the senior facilities, which is good. But if the doctors, I don't know, if there's a path for potentially the doctors who actually do these in-home visits, or the professional personnel who visit them, if we can get them somehow, be small amounts of the vaccine or something to that effect. But these are to individual homes, and we've got services with IHSS and others to where people are, we're trying to, promote, people staying at home and having family members taking care of them, but then getting them the vaccination coming to them via the doctors is kind of what I'm looking for. So I'd like to hear, if you got more robust on that later, we don't have to do that now, but just know that that's something my office has been hearing about, is those individuals that per household that would like to get the vaccination.
We're happy to follow up, Supervisor, with you on that physician and get them enrolled, and we'd love to help them get the vaccinations out for us.
All right, good. Thanks. And then to Vince, this is on the reopening, or I'm just curious on the cease and desist orders that have been given out. And now, as hopefully we're moving towards a red, and even cease and desist orders had gone out to, I'm sure, to restaurants who were open to outdoor dining, and now it's okay. You mentioned that they'd be removed from the website, but I'm sure they were handed a piece of paper that said a cease and desist. Are we providing anything in writing to them so that they have that comfort of knowing the cease and desist is no longer in, is no longer active, other than just removing them from the website?
Through the chair, Supervisor, the way we've structured cease and desist orders, they are written so that it explains that a violation of the health order must cease and desist. When the health order is modified or through state changes, that those operations would then be allowed, the cease and desist order essentially would be nullified at that time. And they were structured that way because we've recognized that the public health orders at the state and local level would evolve quite a bit over time.
Well, I understand that, and quite frankly, a lot of these orders and things that come out are very confusing and complicated and are nuanced. I would like to see us provide these folks with a letter or something from us. I mean, we're the ones who gave it to them. Something from us saying, you are no longer, you were violated for something that is now being allowed. Therefore, the violation no longer is in place. I'd like to see something in writing go out to those people, other than the state just changed it so you're out from under it. Not everybody understands what exactly the state or the county is putting out, and it changes quite rapidly here lately for the better. I'd like to see us actually hand out a letter or do something besides just, well, it's null and void because some other agency said so. So I'd like to see that done. Now, just have a quick question on youth sports. I'm confused on youth sports, if they're allowed indoors in San Diego County because of the court hearing or the judgment by the Superior Court, or they're not. So are indoor youth sports allowed now? I don't know who this is to, but.
Can we get maybe Gary or someone on reopening to address that? I don't believe indoor sports are, but let's have someone on the team answer some questions.
Are you available?
Chair, I don't see Gary in the chamber. I'm not sure he's on the line. So why don't you continue on and we'll see if we can have him call in a moment.
Okay. I guess in addition to my request and I don't have to make it part of the motion, but I do think we should be sending out a letter to these institutions that we gave cease and desist to when they are no longer required to cease and desist. But just on the framework, just to kind of throw some ideas out here, there's other ancillary things going on as we come out of COVID and we have the vaccination, as far as testing and other requirements, particularly youth sports. For one, as far as if the youth teams now have to be tested before a game, or other testing requirements, at schools, if teachers need to be tested more often. So not just, for this money that we're potentially getting, also has to go into kind of these other ancillary things that are not directly, related to loss of a job or loss of income, but also ongoing testing and requirements into the future. Internet for kids is still a big issue for us in the unincorporated areas, particularly with distance learning, because some schools are still going to be doing distance learning. But we found out, not just the unincorporated areas, but in some of the underserved areas of the county, about internet for kids in this changing world. Also, childcare and food banks and those type of things needs still to be part of that framework. So I want to make sure we're concentrating on and some of the mental health issues that that have been an outcome, as we heard from some of the speakers who mentioned that suicide rates are up, drug overdoses are up. If we can spend or look at some of those dollars to go to those types of things that were sort of a cause and effect, not directly related to COVID, but were a cause and affected by COVID, to also be part of those framework dollars, to consider those as well. So that's all I have. The comments on this one. I'd be happy to support the motion as is. Thank you.
Thank you, Supervisor Desmond. Supervisor, we'll make sure you get an answer from staff. I don't believe indoor sports are presently allowed. It's the outdoor. We've now gone below 14, but we'll get you an official answer from the reopening team and point you to the state guidance so you have all that information, along with an update on what the state is proposing to put forward around testing to support youth sports. So we'll make sure you get all that info.
Well, and the confusion is the court. I guess the way I read the decision was that the youth sports were open and available, and it didn't really specify San Diego County, and it didn't specify indoor or outdoor.
Yeah, and the problem on that, one is, as we've seen with other rulings, sometimes it's kind of a broad sweeping ruling that doesn't really explain how it might work. But the general sense from council is what it appears the judge was suggesting is provided they could meet the standard of professional sports. Because the argument was if college and professional can be open, then youth can be open, but it would be held to the same standard, which no high school could meet that standard. So what most of the youth sports I've been talking to have said is they're just going to comply with the state reopening plan, which has them moving on a pathway. But staff will make sure you get all the details on it.
And I guess this is, and I'm fine. I don't want to carry this out too far, but this issue and then saying, well, this, it reinforces the idea that we should be giving letters to these people about the cease and desist because everything is so nuanced. It's not that clear to every business and every individual out there as to what really just happened in the last couple of weeks. So thank you.
That's a good point. Let me ask my colleagues if any of other colleagues have any thoughts or comments they would like to make. We do have a motion and a second on the table. All right. We have a motion by myself, a second by Vice Chair Vargas to adopt the 5 recommendations with the addition of the 6th recommendation that I outlined surrounding a review of hotel room practices. Hearing no further questions or comments, I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Mr. Chair, we do have an answer on that question.
Oh, perfect.
Chair Fletcher, members of the board, this is David Smith, Acting County Counsel. Pursuant to the court ruling, as Chair Fletcher explained, all youth sports are subject to the requirements, at least at a minimum, of meeting professional and college guidelines. There is a hearing on Friday before the court where we anticipate receiving more instruction, or at least we hope to receive more instruction from the court. But right now, that would govern indoor sports.
And would not allow indoor sports, correct?
Correct, unless they can meet the guidelines established for collegiate and professional sports.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Ask the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you. Supervisor Anderson?
Aye.
Supervisor Lawson-Remer?
Aye.
Supervisor Desmond?
Aye.
Vice Chair Vargas?
Vargas, aye.
Chair Fletcher?
Fletcher, aye.
That motion passes unanimously with all supervisors being present and voting aye.
It is 11:48. We're going to break for lunch, allow the staff to get a break. We will reconvene at 12:30. When we come back at 12:30, we will begin with agenda item 3 and then continue in order through the rest of our agenda. So thank you all, and we will see you back at 12:30.